Welcome to RPG Archive. We've got a great show today. We're doing Chrono Cross, the legendary not-so-sequel to Chrono Trigger. We'll get more into that later. We've got some amazing guests today. We got JD back from his trip to Viva Las Vegas.
That's all they sang on the aircraft there, so it was fun.
Excellent. And then we got Majora T.
Hey, what's up? It's me, Majora T. Happy to be back on the archive. What's up, boys?
Frequent contributor. And he's got his channel, Majora T, on YouTube. Make sure you check it out. And we also do the button mappers together. So make sure to check them out as well. Lots of plugs today.
Plug.
Man, we got a hell of a show. We did Chrono Cross. We did Chrono Trigger in the past. You guys were both on it. How do you guys think that one went?
Better.
We haven't started.
Okay, JD promised he would.
Better.
JD started this saying, I'm going to be positive today, and then immediately shat on all of that.
No, I said I'm going to try not to be negative or pessimistic.
Bad start.
I told you I'd try, all right?
Came right out of the
Try
gate.
harder.
That became one of my highest viewed podcasts up to this date, so I was pretty happy about the Chrono Trigger one. Really liked all the insights we were able to get with that one. I think we went pretty deep.
It's deep.
Hopefully we match that with today's Chrono Cross archive. But before we do that, make sure... Oh, go ahead.
Time will tell.
Oh my goodness. We're starting early. Make sure that you check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I think Spotify might be on there. And then, of course, if you're on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. You guys ready to get started?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. JD, no. All right. Of course, we're going to talk about Chrono Cross, but if you've watched the show at all, you know I like to go over some of the news and notes before Chrono Cross happened, and let's look at the development. But first, we can't talk about Chrono Cross without talking about Chrono Trigger. I want to talk about what happened to the team after Chrono Trigger was released. The first interesting thing is Yasunori Mitsuda left Square to go independent. So he's no longer a Square employee. He's a independent contributor. So I'll read a little bit of this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read little pieces of it. Following his leaving, Mitsuda has only worked on one more original game with Square, composing for 1999's Chrono Cross, the sequel to Chrono Trigger. He has worked on over a dozen games since then, including the spiritual successor to Xenogears. So that's after all this. But yeah, he would go on later to be his own musical producer guy. And he worked on games like Xenosaga, Shadow Hearts, Luminous Arc, Inazuma 11, and had an independent album, Kyrite? I don't know. He's done a lot. He's worked on the DS, the 3DS. I mean, he seems like he's still working now. Done Soul Sacrifice, Valkyria Revolution, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I mean, he's done a ton. And we're going to talk more about Yasunori Mitsuda when we talk about the music of this game. But have you guys did you guys know that you heard some of his music later on, or have you guys even played some of these games?
No. I have not.
Oh,
So I've read into Yasunori Mitsuda. I mean, this guy is the legend as far as like music goes. Maybe the underappreciated legend. Like we talked about how he composed to the point of getting stomach ulcers and how he threatened quitting because he was primarily a sound engineer as opposed to creating music, which was his passion. And and then I think we really do see, even though this is one of very few works, as you listed a lot of games and some of them like Valkyrie Revolution, who gives a shit about that, but this one, if you talk about Chrono Cross, the first thing people are going to talk about is usually the music.
When I was doing research for this game and I was looking around on the Chrono Compendium, like literally half of the articles on there are just about him. Like, what's Yasunori Mitsuda up to? It's like
hanging out.
There's like other people that worked on this game, but there was literally an interview with Masato Kato, and they're like, "What's Yasunori Mitsuda up to?" I'm like, "You have the guy that made the game. You could talk to him about the game. You don't have to talk about the music guy." But apparently, it's one of the most famous parts about this game is the music, like you said. So I totally get it.
Right, it's like if you're interviewing like Shigeru Miyamoto about Zelda, you're not like, what's Koji Kondo up to?
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to ask me about how I made the game.
I guess he made his impressions in Chrono Trigger, but also Xenogears, which came out before Chrono Cross.
Yeah, a lot of people think that Xenogears has better, like those Xenogears and Chrono Cross go back and forth on which has the better soundtrack, which is cool because it's both Yasunori Mitsuda. So it's like this guy just was like a legend, and I guess still is because he seems to be still making stuff. Odd that he hasn't made anything as powerful as the PlayStation era. Seems like it kind of tapered off in terms of being memorable. I wonder if that's like a statement about how music went for the PS1 era of RPGs. Like, did it just fall off after that? Like, they just stopped caring so much about the soundtracks of these games?
I don't think that's the case. Let me, before I freaking say what I'm going to say, let me just Google real quick.
I love that. You're using evidence. A fact-based podcast.
I mean, we're trying.
Of course, while he's
Actually
doing that,
got a book here that I've been using, and I've been reading it. It's called Power Up: How Japanese Video Games Gave the World an Extra Life, and it goes into detail about how Chrono Cross music was primarily Celtic in origin, and there was also I had a feeling that a Celtic boom was about to hit Japan, and it did. Right after Xenogears came Titanic and Riverdance, and a lot of Irish musicians started to come to Japan.
You said Chrono Cross was Celtic. Did you mean Xenogears?
Well, it's both. There's an inspiration of that in the OST for Chrono Cross.
Oh, okay, because I thought Chrono Cross was more Mediterranean.
Yeah, I think you can still kind of hear it in some of the themes. There's one that I'm going to mention later. I don't want to, spoil too much going into the game itself, but I think you can still see that. Like, one of the things they were saying is that, like, as opposed to Xenogears or Xenosaga, which had a bit more complicated and convoluted soundtracks, Chrono Cross is simpler, and sometimes it's just even on a guitar string with no other instrumentation.
My favorite song, which again we'll get more into it, from Chrono Cross, is just pure guitar. It's a
I think I know which one.
Beautiful.
I can't wait.
JD, did you find what you were looking for?
Yeah, I was wrong.
Oh no!
What are you looking for?
I was looking up Parasite Eve, and then Parasite Eve came out in '98, and Chrono Cross came out in '99. So I was like, never mind. Because I was just trying to think of like PlayStation games that had good soundtracks. I mean, it's really not fair to say because we were getting into the next generation, or shifting towards the next generation at that point. So it's, maybe it's not fair to say. I don't know.
I hear you. It's just that when I hear about legendary soundtracks, I just never seem to hear much about more modern games. It's usually like a PlayStation game.
Halo.
Oh, Halo. I don't know. I never hear about Halo's soundtrack. I hear about the one, that one, and then it kind of like
There's a reason why high school kids sing that in bathrooms all the time.
Are they doing that? JD's got some experiences that we're not going to get into in this one.
I mean, we're just trying to sharpen up our vocals, just our vocals. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about some other stuff. We're going to talk about Masato Kato. He's the scenario and script writer. He was a busy boy after Chrono Trigger. Of course, we're talking about the Dream Team, and on this one, he did Chrono Trigger, of course, and then he did like his own little solo project, which is called Radical Dreamers. Which is really bizarre and unexpected, and most people probably have never played it, and I would count myself in that. I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I've certainly never played Radical Dreamers before.
No.
I played the real Radical Dreamers.
Chrono Cross?
Yes, Chrono Cross.
I'm just going to go briefly into what Radical Dreamers is, and this is straight off of the Wikipedia. It's a 1996, so this came out very shortly after Chrono Trigger. Text-based adventure video game developed and published by Square for the Satellaview, a satellite peripheral for the Super Famicom. It forms part of the Chrono series, acting as a side story to the 1995 game Chrono Trigger. The game centers around an infiltration carried out by the titular thief gang led by Kid. Aided by Surge and Gil, she seeks an artifact called the Frozen Flame and revenge on its keeper, Lord Lynx. Players navigate the mansion's environments and impact the story's progression through text choices. So they went from Chrono Trigger, one of the most legendary RPGs of all time, to a text-based adventure. Which is kind of bold. But obviously this is more of a passion project. It wasn't a major release. I mean, it's for the Satellaview. So, but it's very, very interesting that he wanted to make this weird sidestep. And he wanted to combine elements of like text-based adventures in horror games, of all things, to make like a weird stealth adventure that's like a complete offshoot of the Chrono series. Did you guys look into this at all, or what's your thoughts on Radical Dreamers?
Yeah, I looked into it after beating the game to be like, all right, well, what the hell is going on here? And apparently Chrono has blonde hair and uses a knife and has access to feral cats. And I'm like, that seems all over the place. Everything's wrong there.
The game, are you talking about Chrono Trigger?
No. Radical Dreamers.
No, when you beat Chrono Trigger, you then went and looked up Radical
Chrono
Dreamers
Cross.
or Chrono Cross. Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to clarify.
Because I was just like all right, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. There were certain parts I was confused about this game.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, it's time to do some research. And then Radical Dreamers got brought up, and I was like, look at all this weird shit. And it's Kid, Surge, and Gil.
Yeah.
Gil.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity.
Yep.
Still stupid.
Well, I
but
believe
whatever.
it is. I believe it is in that game, Magus.
I think he is Magus, but he calls himself Gil.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, why did you? Whatever. Positive. We're positive here.
Teddy,
Good music.
Teddy, have you looked into this one at all?
Sure. So I'm aware that, Radical Dreamers, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it a failed concept. I think it is a product of its time, but I think it's also representative of the mindset of the team. This is not the dream team anymore. This is Kato and possibly Tanaka, but I know that their philosophy, even with Chrono Cross, was that although they wanted to give players something to enjoy if they played Chrono Trigger, they wanted to make a new distinguished experience that matched the hardware. And so I haven't played Radical Dreamers. I can't speak to how good or how well it matches whatever the hell the Satellaview is or does. But, I can say that's probably their inspiration going into the thing. I think based on the description, it still sounds like a step back into the CRPG era, computer RPGs. And I don't know, I think maybe gamers were kind of past that at that point.
Oh yeah. This and I think it had to do with the budget. Is they're not given exactly a lot of money to make this, so you're just kind of having fun. But yeah, I mean it would be very hard for me to play a game like Radical Dreamers today, and I would assume at the time it would be very confusing for anybody stepping into that, being like, it's very odd that this comes from Chrono Trigger, like it's somehow connected to it, which. We'll get more into the tenuous connections because Chrono Cross is such a weird connection to Chrono Trigger that we'll have to experience that for ourselves.
All levels of weirdness. Although I will say, I do see how this is there's the point that was left out in the resolution of Chrono Trigger that I feel like Radical Dreamers tried to resolve, didn't, and that's why we have Chrono Cross.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and you got Magus right there, so absolutely.
Kid, and Kid is super important in Chrono Cross.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk more about Kato on this one. He did Radical Dreamers. He was an event planner and scriptwriter for Final Fantasy VII, and event planner, scriptwriter, and lyricist. That's an interesting title for Xenogears. So, I mean, he's kind of heading up a lot of the biggest games of that generation, of that PS1 RPG generation. 7 in particular, it's kind of crazy to know that he was part of that. I mean, he did Chrono Trigger, 7, Xenogears, and Chrono Cross. It's quite a resume. I don't know. There's not much to say, I guess, about the fact that he was in those games, but it's just it's pretty neat. He was busy.
And I do have a quote here from Weekly Famitsu in the Chrono Compendium, which I guess was a magazine. And Masato Kato is saying, when Radical Dreamers was finished, we did Xenogears. And when talk turned to what to do after that, we decided to redo Radical Dreamers properly. Implying then that Chrono Cross would be that Radical Dreamers.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, that does kind of tie it back together. That it is basically the real Radical Dreamers, or at least the game version of Radical Dreamers.
Mm.
I'll tell you somebody who has an interesting history here is Akira Toriyama. Guess what? He didn't work on Chrono Cross. Isn't that a bummer?
So sad.
I'm actually okay with it, considering I like the design of the characters that are not Toriyama. I know you guys like Dragon Quest. I'm just saying.
I'm not offended. I mean, Akira Toriyama's over the moon with projects. Let's get somebody new in there. And I do appreciate that they brought a guy who was competent. I think they brought two primary artists in Yasuyuki Hon and Nobuteru Yuki, who these guys are primarily anime guys. I think one of them was mentioned as having worked on Macross or Macross. But I think all things considered, it did really well. And also, I think an area that Chrono Cross really shines in terms of the artwork is in like the character profiles. There's even a segment in Termina where one of the guys he'll do a portrait of your primary character or whoever you want him to draw, and so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, let's switch over to that. We'll get to Akira Toriyama in a second. I like that we pivoted this way. Yuki is the lead character designer, right? For it, and he worked with Tanaka on Seiken. Oh my God, you guys have to help me on this.
Seiken Densetsu.
Yeah.
And he does quality work. This is what Kato said about it. Does the kind of quality work we're looking for. This isn't a dream project game. Ain't that the truth? But there are some connections to Chrono Trigger. We didn't want to directly extend Chrono Trigger into a sequel, but create a new Chrono with links to the original. I agree.
Let's clarify too. The Seiken Densetsu series is the Mana series.
Yes, thank you. I agree with you guys. I really like the artwork in this game. I think the characters just have so much personality for what they are, and even the sprites or whatever you would call them, the character models look pretty decent for the PS1 era. I'm not sure what he had to do with that, or who exactly handled the portraits, but all of them are really solid.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I wouldn't buy the I guess the theme of the Archipelago. I can't freaking say that word. That whole theme is so important, right? Like other stuff obviously happens, Chronopolis, Dinopolis, whatever. Right. But like at the end of the day, the theming of the worlds is really, I guess, important, and it really comes off in the way the characters are dressed and the characters look. I mean, yeah, you get a cyborg, and then you're like, okay, it's a little off base here, but everyone else character-wise is pretty representative of the world, which I like.
Right. Well, also to clarify that in designing the theme of the game, they've described this, and this is just how it's translated. So I know the phrasing is maybe a bit off-putting, but they've described it as an ethnic civilization in a kind of not post-apocalyptic, but technologically futuristic world. And so that's why you do still have this blend of this archipelago lifestyle versus technology.
Yeah.
It is really beautiful from the start. I remember the first time booting it up in, what's the hometown? Is it El Nido?
Arnie?
Yeah.
It was Arnie, yeah. I remember just going on the beaches and fighting the Komodo dragons and just being wowed every time you'd start from like the water up. I would rewatch the intro sequence to the game over and over. And at first I think you really do get the sense this is a lush game, but then like once you get maybe past that halfway point, you start to embrace these new themes of futuristic apocalyptic society. Or you don't. You reject them because they're fucking confusing.
Very confusing.
I'm a little column A, a little column B on that one. Let's go back to Akira Toriyama, because he's not actively working on this, but he was part of the Dream Team, so it's worth noting what he's up to. Bird Studio, it's something that Akira Toriyama is the head of. It's essentially ended. They didn't it's not completely over, but they stopped making a lot of things that they did. So the studio had not been active after the end of Dragon Ball in 1995 and has only done occasional one-shots such as Kawa, Kajika, Sandland, and Nico Majin Kintoki.
Okay.
Man, I should just even give up. But
I know Kentucky.
they do a couple of these one-offs, but essentially Bird Studio is done. Now, if you want to know what Bird Studio is, it's a manga and design production studio created by Akira Toriyama. It's based in Nagoya, Japan. The studio was founded in 1983 following the success of Toriyama's Dr. Slump series. And I guess they were working primarily for a while there, up until about 1995, on the Dragon Ball manga. So pretty influential, but it kind of ends here in 1995.
Dragon Ball Z manga. Thank you.
Just says here Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's Dragon Ball Z.
I love Blue Dragon.
No, because Dragon Ball Z's run ended in the 90s. Dragon Ball was earlier than that.
Okay. Well, I
But
guess
it doesn't matter.
maybe they're saying Dragon Ball just as like in case
The franchise.
yeah.
Well, it may not have been. Was it Bird Studio? It may have been a different studio working on it.
Let's go. Toy. It's Toy.
Yeah, that'd be why. So I think the thing is, from what I've read, the Dream Team was a product of its era and something that's like a once in a lifetime happening in the video game industry. The combination of the heads of each of these kind of departments. Usually you get like one guy spearheading the development of a game, and then you're lucky if you get one or two more kind of famous people in there. I mean, Chrono Trigger, you had Toriyama, you had Masato Kato. Who else did you have? I'm not sure, but they describe it as the Dream Team very intentionally because it was a dream that every one of those guys got to come together. And so for Chrono Cross and Xenogears, I suppose, they reconciled not having all of those members in one space.
Yeah. I think it's I know we like the art design that they went with Chrono Cross, but I do agree that maybe they should have just gone with their own thing. Personally, we'll get more into that later. But it's worth noting in 2005, Bird Studio designed an original electric car, the Q-Volt. Only 9 copies of the car exist in the world, but numerous figurines are sold in Japan. And in 2008, Toriyama drew 2 covers for the magazine, specialized in scale modeling, armor modeling. So basically, the last thing they ever did was 2008. Oh, no. Sorry. Kentucky was 2010. Jocko the Galactic Patrolman was 2013. But essentially, Bird Studio's done. All right.
Nice.
Yay. Let's talk about some of the making of Chrono Cross. I have here an article from the Chrono Compendium. One moment. So it has to do with, it's an interview, and it's in the Ultimania, and it's about the character count. And there's a Yoshi system I want to talk about. So Yoshi, that's Yoshi with 2 eyes, is the system that they created that you can translate anybody's dialogue into a different dialect. So you'll see all the different characters having little fun ways that they alter words or finish sentences. And they use that through the Yoshi system. And it was important to have something like that because of the amount of characters that they had in this game. The playable character count was like 45 or something like that. So were you guys impressed by this weird system, or did you think they did it all by hand?
I thought they did by hand.
I didn't even notice. Yeah, until you mentioned it, I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
It's kind of a unique way to do that. Now, it's strictly like a PS1 era kind of solution because, like, as games progress further and further on, voice acting becomes a thing, and I think you just have to do it manually at that point. Or, well, I guess you could do what do they call? What do they call it now? Where they get somebody's voice and then they can just mimic it. It's a thing.
Oh, they're doing that for Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah,
A deep fake.
Yeah.
deep fake.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's visual. Isn't there something?
I think it's together because like you deep fake.
Yeah, you
They
could
did that with like
deep fake.
Joe Rogan. They had him say all these weird things.
Uh,
So it depends on how much you've
Joe's a
spoken.
deep fake. No. I'm kidding.
But as things progress, theoretically they could just deep fake anybody to so you can say whatever you want, which will be kind of
The other alternative that most RPGs do is selective voiceovers.
Yeah, we're just
Like
certain.
for like significant cutscenes. For for minor characters doing voices, I don't think it's a primary concern anyway. But I like how it works. I mean, you still get the feeling of like, each character's importance. I mean, I'm not nitpicking every little thing in the game. I think I'd have to play this game 5 times before I notice any kind of major misreading of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Didn't raise my eyebrow at any time, like, freaking Fargo is like, tally ho, mateys, or whatever,
Well, a lot of it comes into like the weird little off things that they'll say, like Poshul. I can't remember
God.
little goofy things that he'll add to things. He has the funniest line in the game, by the way.
What was that? I just took a shit. Pick it up.
He says when you first transfer over to the other world, and they're wondering where Lena went, he says maybe she spontaneously combusted. When he's got a lisp, so he'll say it that way. Oh, and then he gets kicked off of a ledge, which is also hilarious. But
Animal humor.
yeah, but there's a lot of cool stuff they're able to do with that, and I'm surprised nobody else has tried to use that for something, because it would make it a lot easier to write dialogue if you could just run it through a Yoshi machine.
I found I was putting voices into certain people pretty easily when they were switching their I guess their accents or whatever. Probably the funniest to me is Zoa though, because I just imagine with his helmet on,
Yeah,
he's just like, listen to like, yelling super loud, but he's muffled.
you know who I saw with Zoa?
Yeah.
The Black Knight from Monty Python.
Oh, okay. I get it. Mine is
Yeah.
funnier, but I get it.
Oh, come on now.
No, I appreciate it. I was legitimately laughing to myself
Just
when I
somebody's
first,
like,
yeah, it's just, like when he started talking more. It's actually what made me pick him instead of Karsh when you had the option, was because I just thought he was funny. So I was like, yeah, we'll hang out for a little bit. Why not?
or maybe like Will
But-
Ferrell's voice modulation. It's an old SNL skit.
something that it reminds me of too is oh, you guys wouldn't get it. It's from a YouTube channel that you guys watch. Never mind. Anyway, yeah, that was funny. I also thought Pierre and Harl were relatives.
Oh,
Yeah, because
Well,
if
that
you
would be
think about it, the Orchas, the Corchas,
the goddamn Goldove people.
yeah, they're all don't cha all the time.
Don't cha.
So you think by association, if you're using the same accent, right? Like Kid, no one else has an Australian accent. Fargo, no one else has. Even the relationship with Marcy and Nikki, they don't have his accent or anything like that. They're all different, which I guess is a testament to the game being very multicultural. But like they don't have their accents, and then when you see people that do, you automatically assume, oh, there's a connection. So I used to think that.
Too bad Pierre's a freaking wacko.
He's garbage. Only thing he's good for is getting in the Viper Manor quick. That's it. But yeah, I used to think they had some sort of relation, among other things. So it's interesting. I also thought, we'll talk about that later. There's something else, but.
all right. We said we were going to get into it. Let's do it. Let's talk about the music of Chrono Cross. This is obviously one of the big highlight points of this game. To me, it's got to be number one about what this game brings to the table. This is the first soundtrack I ever bought to a video game. This thing is off the chain.
As the kids would say.
To me, it's the best soundtrack ever. I've heard other people say other ones, and I'm just like, you ever played Chrono Cross? That game's got a banger. Let's talk about Chrono Cross's soundtrack. The music designer, composer, whatever, is Yasunori Mitsuda. We talked about him a little bit, what he's been doing. He's an independent guy now. But here he's working on Chrono Cross, and he's got full reins. Back in Chrono Trigger, he was kind of like an understudy to Mr. Nobuo Uematsu. But this time, they let him off the chain, and he is the whole show. And he's got tons of instruments. He's got the orchestra that he wants. He can do whatever he wants, and he really put it out on the table. He said that he followed more of a Mediterranean style for this one, which makes sense because it's the whole island theme going on here. And he wanted to go for, so here's some of the phrases he used. Burning Soul, which I don't really know how to express that. Lonely World, which I think he nailed.
I was going to say Burning Soul. I don't know if that's tied to the anime trope of like drive or passion or something. Maybe like youthfulness. I don't know. I'm just thinking of every time freaking Guy Sensei from Naruto got like pumped up. He was talking about like youth, and he had a fire in his heart and in his eyes. And you're like, oh, okay.
Maybe
so that's what I think.
Maybe he's watching Naruto.
Yeah, that totally came out at the same time.
And then also Unforgettable Memories, which is kind of I can totally see that in a couple of the songs. These were from another interview, but it's what Mitsuda wanted to convey with the music.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are some of your guys' favorite tracks from Chrono Cross? And it's hard because there's a lot.
I'm trying to find it. I'm looking at the OST right now, and I'm flipping through a couple songs to try and see if I can find it.
Elbes, Goldove, Voyage, the freaking concert, man, on the Zelbes ship. Just a lot of the homeworld tracks, they have a bit more simplicity. I have a quote here from Power Up. I showed it before, two actually. So first off, they mentioned that Chrono Cross retained his now trademark Celtic style. ... With Chrono Cross, I tried to reduce the instrumentation to strip it down to a bare minimum, like how songs are just the guitar. I've gone ahead and I've just listened to the OST. There's a great video on YouTube, and an hour or 2 hours of relaxing Chrono Cross music. I pop that in all the time if I just need like my headspace. There was a collaboration of a bunch of YouTubers that are like instrument music YouTubers, like MK LaChu. She did like violin and stuff, but they have like an assembly of Chrono Cross OST, which is very calming, very beautiful soundtracks, and it also reinforces this kind of concept that you can use music has the same melody and change it like 50 different ways, and it still sounds just as beautiful and unique each time, because a lot of it does use that same kind of dun 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 dun, and they just remix it into different songs with different instruments and different pitches, etc. And it's just beautiful every time.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm gonna call out a couple tracks here. For one, I mean you can't ignore "Scars of Time," the intro, which would be that intro song. The
freaking Chrono Trigger remix. Yeah, man, coming fresh off of Chrono Trigger, like I just really appreciated some of the throwbacks.
Yeah. Well, Scars of Time is the one, the intro video where it like the
Time Scar
is depending on the translation of it, but it starts off with the book, and then it like the video starts kicking in, like dun 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 dun, and then that cool like
top 10 best intros.
Right, it does roll into that though, into the Chrono Trigger remix.
It does? I don't remember that one from Chrono Trigger. Was that a Chrono Trigger thing?
Honestly,
wait a sec. No, maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of another one.
But I know which one you're thinking of, and that's good too. But this one's a complete original, and it's like freaking. I used to get off the school bus, and I would run home to this song because it was just so freaking pumping. Like it was amazing. But my favorite is called And I'm looking at just the Wikipedia name, so some of the names might be different, but it's a narrow space between dimensions, or I called it dimensional vortex or something. It's when you switch bodies, and you end up in that other weird world. There's just like a little guitar riff playing, and that song is so good. It's one of the only video game songs I ever learned how to play on guitar, because it is just so good. It kind of reminds me of like a Christmas song, like "Oh Christmas Tree, Oh Christmas Tree." It's oddly close to that, but it's really, really freaking good. And then
I love the concert so much. Like, it's also kind of like a single shredded, like, you know, kind of metal like concert. Like, you really do get that sense, and just combined with the telling of like this kind of Shakespearean moment in the story, where there's like a tale of a lost, you know, guitarist Nicky, but who's also kind of symbolizing potentially Serge in the game. It just becomes that much more powerful.
You know, I didn't beat Final Fantasy VI, but I did play through the opera scene, and everyone talks about the famous opera scene from Final Fantasy VI. I would argue that Chrono Cross has it beat on that musical part. That whole musician like Nicky scene is so good.
Yeah,
it's ridiculously good. And then
this is a game I really appreciated not having spoiled for me.
Excellent.
You know, like Final Fantasies, I feel like you can't go into 7 authentically now.
That's true.
You can if you're a kid nowadays. I couldn't. Chrono Cross, it's just like, it's such a gem. You know, playing it on your own for the first time, it's just coming straight off a Chrono Trigger too. It's really that much more impactful. I know these guys say, and we're going to come back to this, that it's not intended to be a sequel, but you know, it has its.
I don't think they know what sequel means.
Yeah, I don't think they understand what a sequel is.
I think they thought it meant seagull.
It's not a seagull; it's a video game. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Speaking of seagulls, I was gonna say Zelbez. I agree, because that song got stuck in my head.
Same.
Because I got stuck on the boat. And I was like,
also, same.
Where am I supposed to go? Oh my god!
Transformation.
Yeah, when Sneff in his fucking druggy ass mouth is supposed to help you out, and I was like, "All right, bro, just turn me into a cat." And then come to find out, all you have to do is leave and come back, and he's doing another show. And I was like, "All right, where is the guy?" And I couldn't find him. But yeah, that's a banger. Magical Dreamers is a theme you guys are thinking about with Nicky when he does the show. For the what's it called? Yeah, that fucking rager, bro. Time Scar's good. I actually like Dilemma, which I believe is just like when tensions are getting high, we're gonna play this song. I think both Termina themes to me are really good, because I feel like you go into Termina, regardless of the drama that's happening. I mean, hey, we're under occupation of poor, and they're like, but we're gonna drop a banger, and I'm just like, why is it so festive still? Why does it still sound like this place is great? I can't. There's one more. I can't think of it though. But yeah, like for the most part, like how often do you play a game, especially nowadays? How often do you play? Okay, Doom is a good example of a game you can play and really like a lot of the soundtrack. But how often does that happen? Where you like
Dragon
more
Quest.
than one or two? Okay, released relatively currently.
11.
Final Fantasy 11? Yeah, it's great.
No, Dragon
Yeah,
Quest
no,
11.
yeah, I like Final Fantasy 11 too. It's good.
Jesus.
Justin.
I actually disagree with Teddy. I'm not a big Dragon Quest music guy. Like, I like some of the tracks, but I don't think it's as legendary. I would choose Persona 5. I think that's
Coming from the guy who bought me Dragon Quest CDs.
Well, he bought them for you, not him.
Yeah, I think Persona 5 was the last game where I was like, holy shit, this game has like a musical signature to it, where it's like this game identifies itself by this amazing music that it has. Well,
SMTs in general, I would put the 4 soundtrack on. A lot of them do come prepackaged with CDs. I think a lot of them, this is a trend, I think even of that era is like, and in Japan it's supposedly a lot bigger, this idea of like the music of the game getting its own recognition, at least 20 years ago. I don't know about nowadays. But I don't know where I was going with that. But I think my thing is too, it's beautiful in game. The soundtrack, I love it. I listen to it out of game. One way that it pales is in the I personally think in the combat theme, it just is pale by comparison to the rest of the game. And because it's reused so often, it becomes stale. I'm just so used to like that jarring sound effect of every time you go into battle. And I'm like, you guys just killed the vibe.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you realize they don't really have boss music all that often.
Yeah, it's usually just carried over. If there's like an epic boss, it's just kind of carried over from the music that's currently playing or something.
Oh, yeah, the final boss has like no music. It's just like the sound of the ocean.
Let's be quiet. Don't fuck it up. Kind of what it is.
There's so many good tracks on here. I mean, God, like the Girl Who Stole the Stars.
One really epic boss though that I do think has a banger.
Yeah, the Girl Who Stole the Stars. What is it? I'm just trying to name some before we move on. Feel free to jump on any.
The ones I have saved to my hard drive, and I do have the alternate ones, which I think is kind of like a beautiful thing too. Like JD was mentioning with the two Terminus, I have the two Voyages. They both have distinct kind of sounds. Radical Dreamers, Optimism, Home Galdove version, Dream Watch of Time.
I think Dancing, is it Tokage? Which is which I wasn't even thinking about, but when you're going for the Komodo dragons, like that's just such a, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. It's more of it's a good starting area song. Like you feel, it sort of lets you know, hey, this is sort of the vibe you're going to get into when you go through this area. The colors are very vibrant. The music is very, I mean, at least until, you go to another world, everything's positive. Hey, Komodo dragons, they could kill me, but they're not, that kind
Even
of
like
stuff.
the kind of gentle acoustics when you're exploring the overworld. I miss that so much when I got dropped in another world. You have this kind of like operatic, dramatic sounding music. I'm like, no, what happened to my dun 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 dun?
Yeah, it doesn't feel as hopeful.
Also worth
Chrono Cross the music archive. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's the highlight here to me. The total length of this soundtrack is over 3 hours, which is pretty incredible. That's 3 hours of music. There's like, what, close to 70, maybe more tracks on this CD.
Yeah, I'm saying close, almost 70.
This guy went
Chrono
crazy.
Cross, AK, how's Yasunori Mitsuda doing? Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Is he okay?
Jesus. He did so much. It's worth noting too, he was also combating whether to make the CD or using a sound chip. They used a sound chip, but he thought it was a challenge, whereas other developers thought it was more of a hindrance. But he said it was a challenge to get it into a sound chip, and sounds like he succeeded. So, however he did that, everyone should
Really
learn.
does sound that way.
Last thing I want to talk about in the making of Chrono Cross is this is funny. It's an interview with GamePro. Let me pull this guy up. There was a GamePro interview with Masato Kato, and it's worth noting GamePro was I don't think it still exists. Does GamePro still exist? I don't think.
Cannot confirm.
That's not good for GamePro if they do. But they used to be. They were an American magazine. And they would do, your typical like an IGN or whatever EGM kind of stuff. And they were the print of that. And they did an interview with him, and I think there may have been a language barrier. I'm gonna guess somewhere in here, because it comes up about 3 different times where Masato Kato is insisting that Chrono Cross is not a sequel to Chrono Trigger. He just keeps going, it is not a sequel. And so they're like, okay, let me see. It says
I have one from Chrono Compendium, the Weekly Famitsu interview with Masato Kato and Weekly Famitsu. We didn't want to directly extend Chrono Trigger into a sequel, but create a new Chrono with links to the original.
Sounds like a sequel to me.
I get that they don't want to remake Chrono Trigger. That's all well and good, but when it almost came across like, and we'll maybe we talk about that later because it's getting more into the details of the game itself.
We can talk, man.
Okay. So it almost comes across. Do you guys remember? Do you guys ever follow Cloverfield? The Cloverfield movies?
I love Cloverfield. Yeah. Well, the first one.
Well, that's what I'm about to get to. there's a movie called Cloverfield. It's phenomenal. It's a great horror movie. It's done on like an action cam.
I didn't know you liked it.
Oh, I love it. I adore it. It's one of my favorite horror movies. Really, really good stuff. Well, they made a couple movies after, but the problem is the movies are essentially not related and are different genres. Like there's a really, really good movie with John Goodman in it. I think it's called
10 Cloverfield Lane.
10 Cloverfield Lane. And it's about a guy who just abducts a girl and says the world is going to end, so I'm going to abduct. You need to stay with me. And she finally figures out that he's just trying to hold. It seems like he's trying to hold him there, and it becomes like a whole horror film, right? She escapes, and then the last 2 minutes of the movie are, Cloverfield actually happened, the events from the first movie, and she's on the run from the Cloverfield monster. So it's like,
so he was right, yeah.
It's a great twist and whatever, but the problem is, it's a sequel to Cloverfield, and it's not related to Cloverfield at all, and it's just it became a thing because there's a couple other sequels where the studio made different movies and then decided that they weren't like good enough or big enough and just pushed them into being a Cloverfield movie. And this almost feels like that's what Chrono Cross is. It's Chrono Cross has its own identity and this own process, and it's almost a different game entirely from Chrono Trigger, except for the fact that it's an RPG. And then at a certain point, they're like, "Oh yeah, for some reason, we need to make this a Chrono Trigger game." And they're like, remember Shala? she was attached to Lavos for some reason.
Yeah. No, there's again, we'll touch on that when we get further down because I'm just salivating to express my opinion about that. But I will say it is like they started off very much being like, this is going to be its own thing. This is going to be its own thing. And then heavily rely on Chrono Trigger right at the end to be like, by the way.
Oh, what? You didn't see the picture of Luca and Termina?
Yeah, right. It's that's your fault. You should have been paying attention.
She was there. She was there 2 hours in.
It's things like that. Yeah.
I think there's a problem with saying this is not a sequel. And because they are trying to rely so heavily on making this game marketable for people who haven't played Chrono Trigger. Oh, yeah, don't worry. You'll still be able to enjoy it. Mostly. Becomes so, like, because the entire ending, I could already see myself not parsing it out, but I could really see myself just be like, what the hell am I playing? Like, and what is this narrative about, like, the 3 kids who saved the world and somebody's house burning down and you need that experience with Chrono Trigger to have any semblance of understanding of what's going on in Chrono Cross. I think they should just acknowledge it and accept it. I know that they had in one of those Final Fantasy compilations on the PlayStation 1, they released Chrono Trigger so that people who hadn't experienced it on the Super Nintendo could experience it on the same system as they were going into Chrono Cross with. So, I mean, at that point, why not just accept it? It's clear the narrative ties are clear halfway through, regardless of the making of the game and the experience. I almost see it as like what Majora's Mask is to Ocarina of Time. Okay, it's not Ocarina 2, but it is clearly the sequel to Ocarina of Time. It takes place directly afterwards, and you do have, and it's a reutilization of assets, which Chrono Trigger does. It uses assets from Chrono Cross does. Uses them from Chrono Trigger.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that they released Chrono Trigger on the PlayStation, because in that game, at the end cutscenes, they hint at what's going on in Chrono Cross, which those were designed on the PlayStation 1. So again, it's very, very clear that they were making Chrono Trigger 2, or at least the sequel to it. Like the idea that they're so obsessed with not bringing up Chrono Trigger as like an important part of the game is just very odd. And it almost makes you think that they knew that they weren't going to be able to capture the same lightning in a bottle. Yeah. And that's one thing that I always get confused at when people are like with Star Wars. Either you want to go the prequels or the sequels. I don't care which trilogy, they're all garbage. But if you take those, and people used to say this phrase that always irritated me. They're like, well, you can't compare it to the original. It's like, well, then don't call it Star Wars 4. Like, don't call it the next episode of Star Wars if you don't want me to compare them, because it creates quite a little dilemma. It's just it seems like they really wanted to make something different, and I'm kind of curious what the result would have been if they did, because I think we would have gotten a better product.
Yeah, it's just kind of inconsistent if you look at it like that. Like, you're going to include characters like Balthazar. We're going to be talking about so many characters from the past. We're going to talk about effectively how the villain of the first game is the villain of the second game, just through a little bit of transformation, but effectively very similar. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be like, yeah, but Magus isn't in it. Like, you might as well have went balls deep and just been like, Magus is in it. This is Magus. This is what happened to him. And I am bitter about this. I am. Because I grew up thinking that was the case, only to realize when, I was on the internet that no, it's not. Things like that. Like, you can't put all these elements from the first one and say, but it doesn't tie into it. It's like playing like Mortal Kombat and then jumping over to Mortal Kombat 3 and they're like, it's got nothing to do with the first one. Right. And it's everyone from the first one in it. Right. With more characters.
This is not simply Link or Luigi and Mario, and a freaking portrait in Ocarina of Time. It's not throwbacks, to another game. It is a core part of the narrative experience. And it is possible that they were trying to separate the identity of Chrono Cross from the dream team. How could this live up to Chrono Trigger? And realistically, I think it did just fine. Reputation-wise, sales, we'll get into that. And I think even comparatively with sales, to Chrono Trigger, I just accepted it at that point. Even at least after the fact, maybe going up to it, maybe halfway through the development process. Okay, you think it's not going to be a Chrono Trigger sequel, but it is. So admit it.
There's a really good litmus test, by the way, with this game. If you ever hear people tell you that they've played this game. They'll
and it's not a sequel. They haven't finished it.
Yeah. They'll usually say, like, because I heard this one time and they were talking about Chrono Cross, or I brought it up and they were telling me about their experience with it, and they're like, it's weird though, it has nothing to do with Chrono Trigger. Like, they'll tell you that, and then you'll be like,
yeah, those three little kids.
I don't think you got to disc 2 or anything. But it is interesting. I wish that they would. I personally think they should just made their own game. Seems like what they wanted to do. All right. We've talked about it enough. We're about 52 minutes in. You guys ready to talk about the release of Chrono Cross?
Sure.
Release.
The game came out in Japan in November 18th, 1999, and released in North America on August 15th, 2000.
Oh, EU release.
Yes.
Our friend Terry. Not even on the PlayStation 3 store.
Our friend Terry. It didn't even come out on there?
I haven't seen a confirmation for it.
Oh my god, that's brutal. Yeah, our friend Terry can't play this game. Sorry, Terry, if you're listening.
He'll find a way.
Oh yeah, there may be a way that you can solve that problem. I don't know. I'll give you a hint. Sales-wise, Chrono Cross shipped 850,000 units in Japan and 650,000 abroad, which is interesting. I wanted to put here to contextualize this. Chrono Trigger sold more than 2.36 million copies in Japan and 290 abroad, reaching 2 million in sales in only 2 months. So Chrono Trigger did substantially better, but not in America.
Yeah.
In America, this game actually did better than Chrono Trigger, which probably has something to do with Final Fantasy VII. I would wager it kind of goes back to that, of RPGs just being more of a thing in America after that.
Right.
But that's so interesting. Chrono Cross did worse than Chrono Trigger. This is in Japan, like significantly worse. Why do you guys think that is? Do you think it had... Because it reviewed... Let me get to the reviews, I guess. The reviews are phenomenal for this game. Like,
right, yeah. Perfect 10 in GameSpot. Even a thing? GameSpot?
GameSpot, yeah, gave it a 10 out of 10.
GameSpot's still a thing.
Famitsu, who again, we're talking about more Japan releases. Famitsu gave it a 36 out of 40.
Oh, that's
That's an absurdly high score. It's way higher than I would give it. But
well, I mean, as far as with Famitsu, there's been controversy, but there's also been like the ones that they've given pretty much the golden pass for great sales because Famitsu is regarded so, or maybe not now, but back then was regarded so highly. If you got a 40, like everyone's getting your game.
yeah.
So I was expecting them to say 40.
So I'm wondering here, what happened? Is it just because it's so late
And loyalty.
Maybe they're moving over.
Nintendo
to
is so popular in Japan. I mean, I don't know. The PlayStation is foreign hardware. I don't know what PlayStation sales are like overseas in general. Final Fantasy VII is more of a Western phenomenon, is it not?
Well, Final Fantasy VII was what 2 years before this. When did it release?
It was something like that. Yeah. Well, we're talking about Japan's releases.
Oh, Japan side. If I'm being honest, I think they probably didn't market it to relate to Chrono Trigger, and that's a problem. That was a detriment, in my opinion. Like, who wouldn't want to carry that on? Like, it's a trend. It's a trend for a game. Hey, I've played such and such game. I really appreciated it back then. Oh, but this isn't a direct sequel. Well, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like you're acknowledging you're both acknowledging and denying Chrono Cross's relevancy, or Chrono Trigger's relevancy to Chrono Cross. By that account, I think that did have some bearing on it. I don't think it was an issue of like because we're talking about in what 99 with Chrono Cross, so it's like it wasn't like the portable games were all that or portable systems were incredibly were killing it, right? Like we didn't have the DS, we didn't have what's that?
When did the Game Boy Advance come out? Not even out yet.
Game Boy Advance came out what 2002, 2003.
Yeah, it came out later.
So it's like people are stuck at home, you know, when they're getting their gaming in. So the only thing that makes sense to me is marketing or just how people are splicing it up to be like not related to Chrono Trigger until you play it. And I mean, then even the last third of the game is really when you find that stuff out more.
Comparatively, the sales for Final Fantasy VII in Japan in 1997 were 4.2 million.
Yeah. Because it's a trusted IP. It's a trusted IP. In my opinion, in my hypothesis, it's a trusted IP. You know what you're gonna get. This is its first foray into the next generation. Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross. If they made it more like, yes, this is in fact a sequel, then I think people would have probably been more open to it.
What about the dissolution of the Dream Team? Do you think that had anything to do with it? Because in Japan, they probably looked at it a lot closer than we would. Like here, imagine here if we were. Well, we don't really have any legendary people, but imagine here if they're like we're doing a Beatles reunion tour and they put them all together.
Sure. Yeah, okay, so let me jump in here. I've been reading a bit, and part of the reason Dragon Quest took off in Japan is because they cross-promoted it with Shonen Jump. Mm-hmm. So they were tying into manga and stuff, and that's why we have like these Dragon Quest celebration days in Japan, even to this day. Chrono Trigger still had the Akira Toriyama connection. Chrono Cross does not. And so, I mean, yes, I agree, potentially not honing in on Chrono Trigger 2 hurts, but you also don't have the name recognition in multiple ways too, like even with the tie-in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm just trying to think of it like in terms of America. It's really hard to make a comparison, but I'm just like it was this way and it was iconic, and then they just completely changed it and it's not anything what it used to look like, and it would just be a complete disaster.
I know.
Oh, give me one.
That's Metal Gear Solid 5 and then Metal Gear Survive.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean that's not Western, but the point is there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, if we're going Western, you could say the difference between Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4, or Fallout 4 and Fallout 76.
Oh,
where
76
goes to a completely left field. Yeah, and I mean there are the naysayers of Fallout 4, but like 76 is a very clear departure. People did not like it. You could use the example of Diablo 2 to Diablo 3. Diablo 2 is really solid. Diablo 3, it goes in such a huge direction that there's legitimately different people that that can't really appreciate both to the full extent because they're used to one way over the other.
I don't know if I would say that so many people were so disgruntled at Chrono Cross, though. I mean, maybe they didn't buy it, but the reception seems overall pretty astounding.
It's more like a unspoken or like a secret, you know, where it's like, oh, hey, this is a really good game. You should look into it. It's like, who told you about this? Just play it.
All right, you guys ready to talk about Chrono Cross?
No.
Early. It's been a month since I beat the game, but I'm ready.
I'll start you off with an easy one. I know I just said we're going to talk about Chrono Cross, but I think we need to talk about Chrono Trigger first.
Oh, great.
You
mean the prequel?
Yeah, you mean the first one?
Hey guys, welcome to the Chrono Trigger archive again.
Well, we need to find out what exactly happened to a lot of these Chrono Trigger characters, as it will transfer over. Let's talk about some of the NPCs first, and then we'll get into the main party. I'm not going to go over every single one. This is a very long list, but I'm just going to look at the ones that I think are important. Do you guys remember Dalton?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy with the kind of looks like Magus, but he's on the ship. He's like kind of a funny guy.
Yeah, I found this so strange because he's kind of not the main villain, but like a huge villain in this game, and he's never brought up at all. Chrono Trigger DS reveals that he fell into a dimensional vortex where he plotted revenge against Chrono. Angry that he had been denied the power to rule over the Dark Ages, Dalton planned to enter the present age and raise an army in Por to obliterate the kingdom of Guardia, thus denying Chrono his kingdom as well. He successfully invaded in 1005 AD and stole the Masamune. He's presumably still in power during the events of Chrono Cross, and Por is consistently militaristic and even explicitly looking for the Frozen Flame, a relic which Dalton would have knowledge of. So, the goofy-ass dude who would like run away from fights and summon golems to help him defeats Chrono in Guardia, and basically kickstarts a lot of the events in Chrono Cross. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even. He's not referenced anywhere in the game, so
Anywhere.
I don't even know where that's cited.
That's part of the DS.
Yeah.
Where they talk about him being thrown into a different thing.
Oh, so at the ending of the DS version or something?
Yeah.
They talk about that, and they also talk about Magus being thrown into a different time period because they need something other than strength. And then he like forgets I think Scala wipes his memory, or he does it himself. Something like that happens, and that's supposed to set him up to be a character in Chrono Cross. Fuck it.
It works.
And so at the end of Chrono Trigger, when you're looking at the anime scenes and you see Chrono dying, that's Dalton's force doing that.
Yeah.
Which is so bizarre because it's like he's such a throwaway character, like a goofball.
I have so many problems with that. Because I'm like, it doesn't make sense that Chrono. I don't think Chrono's dead. I think it's or Marl. I think the kingdom was lost because it has to make sense, but it doesn't make sense to be like, I destroyed or thought I destroyed the greatest threat to the galaxy and time, but man, I can't take on this fucking army.
Yeah, he's got freaking Luminaire.
Yeah, dude, he's got Luminaire. And he's got a fucking time machine. Hey, Por's army's getting ready to attack. All right, we'll go out the back, go through the epic, and then we'll figure it out. Like, there's so many things you could have done. So I don't think he died. I know that cutscene because I remember seeing that, the anime cutscene for that ending. But yeah, no, I don't think he's dead. It doesn't make sense. Like, just logically, it doesn't make sense. So
there's the three Gurus of Zeal. I only want to talk about Balthazar. Yeah. Balthazar's history is best known. In the new and happy future, he constructed Chronopolis, learned of the Time Devourer's fusing, and orchestrated Project Kid, an elaborate plan to free her by splitting the universe in two and engineering the creation of an archipelago, hopefully I said that right, and its culture over thousands of years. Though his plan smacked of megalomania and a tendency to play God, he ultimately achieved his goal traveling to the modern era in the Neo-Epic to watch it unfold personally.
His tendency to play God makes it seem like he's a villain.
That is a whole can of worms in and of itself of the plot of Chrono Cross, which we'll talk about later. But Jesus, it's just,
this guy just doesn't like
Plot of Chrono Cross explained.
Yeah.
That shit's gonna be difficult, man. This is the clusterfuck, man. I think they just threw everything at the table until they saw what kind of worked, and then here you go.
It's like playing with Legos. They just had a whole box of it, and they're like, "Oh, keep these parts, get rid of those." That's it.
And then Balthazar threw Chronopolis into the past, and then he made it so there was a force field, so every time you entered, you would have your memory wiped. But then one day there was a storm, and Shala controlled the storm, and then Surge's dad,
She heard it.
but in the previous timeline, he was actually died by drowning. And so, oh my god.
yeah.
This is where we get to this shit.
Do you guys remember Mother Brain?
Yeah,
Chrono
it's a
Trigger?
great boss in Metro.
Yeah, the Robo boss.
Yeah. Well, in the new future, Mother Brain operated on the Mother Brain circuit and presumably computed normally until 2300 AD when Chronopolis was constructed. Balthazar integrated the Mother Brain circuit in his designs to create the supercomputer Fate, an important part of Project Kid. So that's Mother Brain's connection. Scala had the hardest time of any Chrono Trigger key player after the adventure wrap. During the Ocean Palace incident with... Okay, so this is the shit that seems like it was written by like a 2-year-old. Because you're going to see a lot of things where they're like, and then they formed together and she was transferred to here. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like, magic. It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for it to happen. It just kind of does. During the Ocean...
I do appreciate that unresolved conflict of Shala and, well, almost Magus is mentioned and brought up, because at ending Chrono Trigger, it was just such a, like, I don't know if missed opportunity is the right word, because I mean, I kind of like that they were leaving something out, like leaving room for development, but it's not like just completely avoided. So I mean, while it does get kind of funky with like the whole telling, still think it's good that like she's somewhere.
yeah. It's like the continuing them saying we're going to keep the series going, and then never.
I would actually prefer like that, and that Chrono Cross is the sequel that it is, than it be something completely different under the Chrono moniker.
Mm-hmm. During the Ocean Palace incident with Chrono present, she fell into a dimensional distortion with the Mammon Machine, ending up in the darkness beyond time. There, presumably after its defeat at the hand of the heroes, Lavos found her and fused with her, creating a new being called the Time Devourer. Mm-hmm. The creature had a mid-evolutionary stage called the Dream Devourer, which you can fight in the Chrono Trigger DS. Once evolved, this abomination would have the capacity to devour all space-time. See, I like that in Chrono Trigger, the stakes are like, it's a parasite on the planet. Okay, I totally get that. That makes sense. I appreciate that. When you get into the whole like space-time, it devours like space and time itself stuff. It becomes like Final Fantasy. Like at the end of all the Final Fantasies, you end up fighting something that is attacking reality or something. Some like very abstract situation. I don't buy that stuff. I don't like it. Mm. Things were quiet until Project Kid. The plan to save Scala was well underway. Through Balthazar's machinations, Scala cloned herself and sent a copy of the baby into the world to be found by Luca. Her mind at this point was teetering on desiring to destroy everything as desired by the Time Devourer and wanting to save the world. And that will be Kid later. So,
yeah, that's another thing. There's two questions to that. One, Chrono. There's three questions now. I just thought about it. Surge. What the fuck is? We made a joke about it the last time we were hanging out. But what the fuck is a panther demon?
Oh, come on.
Right?
We'll tear into that.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Second,
terraform that one.
So what the fuck's panther demon? Two, when Surge is hurt, why does she? Maybe I missed it. Why does Scala suddenly listen and reach out in her, like hear the voices of a single baby crying that's in the just out in the what's it called? Out at sea with father and father's best friend, scheduled to go to Marvel, and they're like, nah, we're sending you Chronopolis because I want to. What's that? And then 3, how did you create a baby? I cloned myself. What the fuck? That's never explored.
It's like, what does
never
that mean?
explored. And then you're like, oh, I cloned this baby. So, okay, so let's understand the logic here. You clone this baby? Can you dictate where this baby ends up? Apparently so. So if you can still do this, why didn't you do more than just, I cloned me? Why didn't you go, hey, by the way, I cloned me with the Masamune, which is not corrupted, and also like this rainbow shit that you could put on your sword. I know, right? Yep. To get you like super geeked up. Like, this shit doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like,
by the way, Balthazar knew all this would happen.
What the
fuck? Balthazar planned all of it.
It doesn't make sense.
What? Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare. You guys want to talk about?
I'm gonna try.
Let's talk about the main cast here. Ayla is essentially, I mean, she just gave birth to the line. She's hinted at. There's a little Easter egg of her as a character in the game. That's about it.
Well, do you think? Oh, never mind. Keep going. You're fine.
Frog, the only things to note about him is that he had the Masamune passed down with the Guardia Castle's halls during the fall of Guardia in 1005 AD. It was stolen and used in battle. It became corrupt and carries into the game. So that's Frog's contribution. Robo is a pretty big deal. Specifically, he returned to 2300 AD where he and Atropos XR got together in love and enjoyed life. The ending provided a glimpse of their happiness as they sat on a cliff. But later, Robo apparently discussed with Balthazar Project Kid, and eventually Robo volunteered to be part of Balthazar's plan to save time and was integrated into Chronopolis as the Prometheus Circuit. So that's where he is. He's actually, ironically, in the game, but I don't know if they ever actually mention Robo. I think they talk about
they call him Prometheus.
Yeah. Well, that's Robo.
The irony, the only character that's really the most mentioned, or like the closest to being like
in the game.
Yeah. Like, because Chrono and all them are like illusions, right? Mm-hmm. Scala is really, it's like a reborn Scala.
No, I think the one in there is her.
Oh, is actual Scala? Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's just like she's blonde hair instead of blue hair.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. I don't know. Just another weird inconsistency.
Luca's dead, so.
Well, and Luca has the biggest role in this one.
Yeah.
Upon her return from time traveling and saving the world, Luca settled down and continued to pioneer new inventions. She conducted research in robotics, artificial intelligence, and time travel, eventually gaining the skill to forge a time egg prototype. In 1004 AD, Kid came to the modern era as an infant, and Luca found her while walking in the forest. A year later, the fall of Guardia occurred, and that gets into Chrono Cross. But there you go. Luca kind of kick-started the whole... It helped out Kid. Somehow Scala knew to drop her off at Luca's house.
What the fuck, man?
I guess. It's all kind of a mess, but there you go. Luca's very important. She did all the technology that they're currently using, so there you go.
All the theories that she actually uses, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna run off of that, and I'm like, I don't remember being that fucking smart. I just remember shooting shit, like and casting fire a lot. Like that's
she was definitely smart. She was able to fix Robo in 2300 AD.
Yeah,
which is probably where she gained a lot of her knowledge is by manipulating Robo.
Yeah. But we're talking about her theories on time. I don't know if Robo's like, hey, by the way, you can create a time egg if you do this, you know? Like,
have you used a wormhole?
Right? It's crazy. Here's the formula.
I just imagine he has Goofy's voice.
Yeah, Robo is black, actually. And he's, listen in there, child. Let me tell you a story.
JD's version.
Oh, man. Yeah, Robo's the homie, man. I need my representation sometimes.
And then Chrono and Marl, obviously, just an easy one. They
fucking die, apparently.
Theoretically, die or go missing, whichever you want to say. But Guardia gets taken down by Poor. There you go.
I thought you said you're starting with an easy one. I'm more lost now.
Right. It's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. All right. Let's talk about the introductory plot to Chrono Cross. This is based off of the Chrono Cross wiki. The story of Chrono Cross begins with Surge, who must collect Komodo dragon scales on the beach for his friend Lena. The setting is El Nido, a tropical... Say that one for me again, Teddy. Archipelago. Inhabited by ancient natives, mainland colonists, and beings called demi-humans who are often prejudiced against. While meeting his friend, Surge slips into an alternate dimension in which he drowned on the beach 10 years prior. While searching for the truth behind his supposed death, he meets a thief from the infamous group called Radical Dreamers, Kid, who is intent on finding the mysterious frozen flame. So immediately here we're introduced to the idea that Chrono Cross, while Chrono Trigger was a game about time travel, Chrono Cross is a game about dimensions and time travel. So there you go. What do you guys think of the basic plot right here of Chrono Cross?
I actually like the basics perfectly fine. Right? It's when shit got off the rails that it became a problem. But like, so long as they were keeping it in the world of Chrono Cross, and like, hey, this is Termina, this is Arnie, this is all this shit. Hey, Frozen Flame, we're calling it a different name. We're not going to talk about Lavos anymore. You know, that kind of stuff. I'm cool with it. Like the basic plot, what leads to what it leads to, pacing wise, starts off great. I'm perfectly okay with it. Certain things, like when you get the choice after the Viper Manor thing, I'm a little bit like, what? But outside of that, yeah, it's a fine start. It's a good start.
I am totally okay with the intersectionality of dimensions as a premise for the game, and I think it works. It holds together for the most part, and I think one of the ways after the major plot twist in the game, or like the major kind of switch, I guess would say, is I've really appreciated character growth after that. Prior to that, a lot of the side characters are just that. They're just side characters. They have no major development whatsoever. But it's then after seeing them in multiple worlds from multiple perspectives, from Serge, from Lynx, that you really start to see them shine. You start to learn that like Fargo is a man who feels like a failed husband, father. You start to learn that Nikki like maybe wants a relationship with his dad. You start to learn a lot more about the overall inhabitants that is Chrono Cross and El Nido.
Yeah, I love the idea of multiple dimensions. I think if you can keep it consolidated to that, you can make a really, really good story. And for a lot of Chrono Cross, I think they have it. I like that the character growth from a lot of the characters. I mean, some of them are kind of dumb, but like a lot of the characters do have a nice growth where they start out with one issue and end up, solving it or having some resolution to it. Like you said, Fargo and his whole family. Like there's a whole bunch of characters that kind of tie into that. Or the Dragoons from Viper Manor. They have a great little story. And then you got little ones here and there, but those two specifically stand out to me as, benefiting from the cross dimensions. Yeah,
I didn't realize that like Karsh, because I used to not like him. And I was like, you know what, this dude, we resonate. I will say, if you're talking about like Fargo, that's probably the happiest ending out of everyone. Like, hey, your family's, well, I mean, not all your family is dead. They're just, they're with you. Marcy's just long lost, and Nikki's just like finding out about you when there's I hate how you find out, by the way. He's like, are you my father? He's like, he looks at the dresser and he's like, this is the dresser my mother had. And then here you are in the doorway. There's this fucking feline beast just standing there, just like, should I leave and come back?
Is this a bad time, meow?
Yeah, right. But like that, I mean, I guess, well, no, Karsh's isn't exactly a happy ending per se. Like, he still likes Riddle, loves whatever. But like at the end of the day, hey, I didn't really kill this guy. That's good. Right? I'm not a murderer. Radius is a murderer, not me, that kind of stuff.
Fargo is also one of the only side characters that you have to like see his side story too. A lot of them are kind of just optional moments to get their level 7 technique, which they're there, but there's a lot of opportunity to miss things as opposed to missed opportunity.
What do you guys think of Surge as a main character?
Fine.
I've got no opinion.
He's a little more agency than Chrono.
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually have a couple selectable dialogue options? Not many. I say it's maybe like 2% of the overall narrative, but there are points where he kind of quote unquote talks. So I felt a little bit more attachment to him, especially his techniques. It was great to see things like every time I got like dash and slash, I'd use dash and slash. Luminaire, when I first got that, I was like, oh wow, Chrono Trigger connection. Super, it's better than the SNES version, but I think in general, and he's just kind of like cool, subversive pirate look to him, and I think it's interesting. As far as like premise for his being, I think you have a little bit more to grasp onto than Chrono. Chrono's just like the world's hero. Serge is a boy who's investigating the disappearance of his father. And so, I mean, while it doesn't resonate with me per se, it's something, it's some tangible concept.
I will say with Surge too, what gives him a little bit more than Chrono is that you have those not only choice dialogue, but you do make choices. Really, just two major choices. One of them's kind of whatever, but the one with Kid, I mean, that kind of shapes at least a little bit of what your view of Surge might be. Is that what he decided to save a kid or not, and it helps. Again, he's still a silent protagonist, so you get what you get with that, but it helps.
The answer is always don't save kid.
That's true.
You get Glenn.
Because then
and life is good. Why would you not get Glenn? You want Corcha? Fuck off. Yeah, I guess now that you guys mention it, there's a couple of choices here and there, which is fine. I will say he looks like a more realistic 17-year-old.
He's not as
fucking Chrono. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but he's like island ripped. Like he probably went and, you know what I mean? He probably swims a lot. He, probably catches fish like by hand or some shit. He's fighting Kimono Dragon, so he's got to have something, so it makes sense. It's not like Chrono, who's legit. Steroids don't exist, buddy. How are you getting your gains? Like power tablets? Okay,
power tab.
Yeah, it's just.
And even from an artistic standpoint, Chrono is just your prototypical Akira Toriyama main, hero figure. Something he drew in his comic books. Serge, I mean, we're not Toriyama here. We're doing Yuki, and I like what this guy did. I think. He made kind of like a nice little, not too much Slate character to just put your impressions on.
Yeah.
Because he does have that kind of island vibe to him. So I'm into it.
What about Kid?
Island vibes, man.
What do you guys think about Kid?
I like that she's Australian.
I mean, wish
not Australian, but
I could have used her more in my playthrough. I treated her as like a second, like kind of like your captain's mate or something, I guess, in the theme of tropics. But she's available for most of the Serge playthrough. But then once you're Lynx, you can't touch her. You can't like get anywhere near her, and you have to do this whole ordeal in order to get her back in the party. And it's possible that I could have done it sooner, maybe before a couple of the Dragon quests. The Dragon Quest. But I just didn't see it as an opportunity. And so by the time I was able to get her back in the party, all right, let's go. It's final boss time. It's like, really? Oh, man. Because I liked her fire techniques. I didn't find a good fire user that I liked throughout the remainder of the playthrough. So I was a little disappointed there. I do like her as a character. She got to use her more.
I think she's great. She definitely gives you a lot of voice. Where Surge doesn't speak much, she kind of takes the place of that, which they always do that in these kinds of games. But I like her voice. She's like a must play with me because she has Pilfer. So you always want to Pilfer the bosses, and so it's pretty much guaranteed that I was going to use her.
Doesn't Fargo get Pilfer?
Doesn't who? Fargo, yeah, and that's where you get, but that's where you get Pilfer. That's where you get Pilfer for links.
The first half of the game, she is one of like 2 characters that can use Pilfer. Of these 45 characters or so.
Well, she's going to pilfer something that's going to be replaced by the end of the game. So I didn't have her in my team at all. I could care less about
honestly though, I don't blame you because her stats aren't great.
I'm just not the biggest fan of her. Like I did forge. I treated her and Surge pretty well in the beginning, where it's like forging materials, trying to make them the best. And yeah, she responds pretty well initially, but like after a while, I was like, I don't give a shit. Just, let me get Glenn. And even Glenn initially is like, he's good, but it's like you need him dual wielding to really see the effects of how good he is. But she was a stepping stone character for me. I think her relevance to me, just me, not the story, not the average gamer, just me, sort of falls off after she gets stabbed, because then she's under the control of freaking, it's fate, right? At that point. And then pretty much Dark Surge is running around and he's like, yeah, that's right, we're gonna kill you, and whatever, fuck off, let me go kill these dragons real quick.
I have Lynx and Harlan here. I think I want to save them for later when we talk about the story.
Oh man, Harl. I've got words about Harl, but
she's like my favorite character in like any video game.
I have no idea why.
We'll get to it later.
No, I know, because it's your image. That's why.
we already kind of talked about Time Devourer and Scala, Balthazar, and we talked about Balthazar. Any other characters you guys want to talk about without getting too deep into the story?
Glenn, love him. He's great.
Boy, Starkey. Represent.
They made Starkey a required character. How great is that?
It just fucks up your theming. It fucks up your theming so much. It's like, by the way, I'm from space. All right,
I loved it. Yeah, freaking aliens underwater, man. Yeah, and then you fight him. He's like a massive version of himself. You find this massive alien. I'm like, whoa! I texted Spencer. I got his boss call. I'm like, that's super cool. I'm like, what? He joins the party? Oh yeah, and he has like photon ray beam. He calls down the what the hell is it? It's MK something or call on Starman Guardian to do special attack MK1, MK2, or MK3.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, and they're like a Power Rangers, like Megazord.
God.
That's a genius. I think he's great. He hits like a freaking truck. If you get his special gun over in Arnie Village, holy shit. That guy was hitting harder than Lynx for a little bit for me. He was an absolute monster. Really cool. One of my other.
What's your guys' primary party? Oh yeah, you can say that first.
Well, then this ties into that. One of my favorite characters on it that wasn't Harl is Riddle. Lady Riddle.
Yeah, the Dragoon lady or something.
Yeah, she is phenomenal. She's a healer.
Oh, she's Viper's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she was great. Oh, I used her. I was my primary healer for the for the end game. Yeah.
Oh, me too. She's and she has that move that revitalizes her elements. It's like holy shit, you can keep going.
Yeah.
I use that against the thunders or the yellow dragon that is like really hard to beat. I used her.
Isn't it funny how those green and yellow don't actually have names, but like fire and then water and light and dark do?
What do you mean?
No, it's called white.
What do you call the yellow or the green dragon? It's just yellow or green dragon, right?
I think so.
Isn't one of them called the fire dragon and the other's the water dragon?
I can look that up, but all of the elements are just colors.
Well, I mean, when you're fighting the dragons is what I mean. Like the black dragon is just the black dragon.
I'll look it up for you.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
I'm trying to think. Are there any memorable?
Air dragon, black dragon, sky dragon, green dragon, water dragon, earth dragon.
Oh, earth dragon was yellow.
He's earth.
But yeah, green is just, I guess.
Green.
I guess green. Yeah. Grass. Poison dragon.
I'm a grass dragon. Bushwhacker away. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm the grass dragon.
Right. Explains why Glenn was always so chill. I would. Fargo, I've actually come to appreciate a lot. My brother never had him on his team a lot, which is weird to me because he always had Guile on his team. He's like, oh, he's so cool, and his reverse tech or reverse what's it called tree. And I didn't get Guile on this playthrough. I got Pierre because there's a story, but I was trying to catch up as quickly as possible. So I got Pierre instead, and I guess I don't miss him. Because there's a lot of other characters. There's too many elements.
Well, Guile's actually counterintuitive to actually beating Chrono Cross correctly. So I don't disagree.
Well, yeah, he wouldn't be in my
He wouldn't be in your last party.
No, I used Fargo and Glenn in my last party. Yeah. But I think, and that was for the most part who I used, or Marcy and Fargo. Giving them some time to bond and reconnect after a while. But yeah.
Can we agree on one thing about this one?
What?
There are too many damn characters.
Yeah, there are characters that take sidelines. Yeah, and that's the thing is like people use that as like, oh, it's so cool for its time. My brother used to use that. It's revolutionary. Like, no, like it's just it's the nature of having that many characters is someone's going to be not as important and left to the wayside. There's going to be effectively a tier list of who matters plus their relevancy. Like, why do I care?
Joke, yes. And I remember being on the SS Elbus and getting the entire Viper squad at once. Viper, Karsh, the girl, what's her name? Marcy.
And Fargo.
So
yeah, you can only get one of them on the boat.
But you get the other one. Right. Well, anyways, you get like 5 characters in sequence, and I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm already like having trouble picking like 2 at any one time. I do think though, like, and as far as customization goes, I love it. I love like being able to like kind of swap, and you need to swap at certain times. I remember after the Garai battle, I think that's the guy's name, or during it, my primary party was Lynx, Harl, and Starkey, and he would just wipe my first 2 characters out every time because the white-black contrast thing, the white-black feud, whatever, it was just destroying my party, and so to be able to have to switch, and you were getting XP as you were going for all of your characters, which at that time was limited because you had to restart all of your characters. It just was really convenient that all of them were still viable. They were all still able to be used, and you could take any of their elements, you could swap them onto another player. From a gameplay perspective, I thought it was genius.
I would counter that it was nice that they were all viable with that they were all medium. They were all kind of like average, and almost just like a little weird stat ratio. They had like a 10-point range, or just what it seemed like. I think I get reminded of like Suikoden, because that was a game that did this a lot, where they had like 1 million playable characters. And I tend to think like with JD, I agree with that there's so many characters, and the fact that you can just move all your elements over to any other character, it's like, what's the point of having all these characters if they're so blank canvas?
Yeah.
To me, it would be nice because each one has like 3 moves that are like their move, or well, I guess, yeah, 3, 4, 3. I think it's 3. And then
unless you're
usually,
split.
but summons add to that.
Yeah, and you add that to it. But so like with such few things to identify each one, it became so pointless to me, and it became an oh, I got to use a new character. All right, pull off all the elements of this guy. Okay, let's go add him to this guy. Here we go. You're gonna get Fireball +1. You're gonna get this one 3 times. You're gonna get.
Gotta strategize. Yeah, it's.
At a certain point, it's like, what's the point of all these different characters if they're not different? Like they have minor differences. And I got to get a green guy. Okay, who's green? It's like calling out to the party. It's like, hey guys, green? Which one of you is green? Okay, you come on, come on, Karsh. I need you for this one.
I got to be honest with you. I got Norris, and I was actually really happy for getting Norris. I remember this guy. I got him, and then I saw his sphere grid, and I was like, get the fuck off my team. Like, the only reason why I kept Sprig on my team was because of, what's it called? and I got the White Knight doppelganger, which is strong as shit. Which is how I beat Garai, by the way, because I was getting destroyed too. But that if you put strengthen on him, he hits like 300 each time. God. Like 300, 350, and I'm like, yo! And only reason why I won that fight because I was getting fucking destroyed. I was like, dude, this is a hard stop for me. And yeah, you get a character like Norris, and you're like, what do you offer? Like, you're worthless to me. I don't want you on my team. You know, there's certain guys I just was never going to use. I don't give a shit about Viper, right? I didn't give a shit about Norris. Looking at the list here,
there's like a bunch of throwaways. There's a turnip, there's a flower, and there's a totem pole. Yeah. When am I going to decide to use it? But I don't know. Like, I mean, on a repeat playthrough, I might like to go with the dragon and Pip. Like, that could be cool. Like, there are like, and I understand the point of like, there is no point for the party from the gameplay perspective. But if there's like some attachment you're drawing to the Dragoon Knights or something, or like to the anthropomorphic creatures, then maybe that's there for you. Maybe if you like Fargo. On my first playthrough, I loved Fargo, and so I went Fargo, and then I did Riddle. Those were my primary characters, but I did swap here and there. Starkey was awesome for a bit of it. I had it was almost like I had sagas. I had the Harl, Starkey, Lynx saga, and then I had the Serge, Korcha, Kid saga. And so, I created attachments through my memories with different team combinations. Strictly from from a gameplay perspective, because it was easy to get those skills on them, but also from like this kind of like untold narrative sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and as much as I shit on the gameplay part of it, I do admire that they tried their best and they made. I think they did some really good things with their stories, and at least tried to get them to actually all have something that happens to them, and like we talked about earlier, just like resolved, some kind of thing resolved through going to multiple dimensions. And I was surprised at how many characters they were able to tell these stories through in a relatively short amount of time. Like the third act of the game is just everybody's going like, oh, my thing's resolved, and it's cool that they all just kind of came together that way. And you have to kind of go out of your way to do it, but if you like those characters, you can generally have something cool happen to your character if you liked them. So I do admire that, and I think it's pretty neat. And yeah, it is cool. Like if there's a character that you specifically like, you can make him work. Whether he's luckily this game isn't multiplayer, so you can't have like a perfect build. Like there's no like meta to it. You just build whatever you want and make it work. You can. Yeah,
it's more. There's a best. There could be an implied best series of characters for a certain element of the game. Like, because again, so I'll just fill you in. I lost my save data and I had to catch up. Oh, boy. Yeah. Well, it wasn't terrible in the grand scheme of things. I didn't realize how much you could actually skip in that game. And in reality, when I caught up, it was much quicker than I thought. But they're like, hey, Lena, you need Lena at this portion because she's your best caster, and she's blue, so you can use Frog Prince with it and like wreck. Yeah, you can wreck half of like these supposedly really hard bosses. I was like, oh, bet, like I'll do that. And she made the game super easy. And then when you turn into Lynx, it's like she's never mentioned again. Don't put her on your team, kind of a thing, which is really interesting. I mean, they were like, put Sprig on your team, and I was like, why? And then you get the White Knight, and you're like, all right, I see why.
You were playing through this guided.
I played. So I initially no. But then when I lost my save data, yes, the fastest way to get caught back up. And then it ended up skipping a couple of scenes. Like I never saw the scene of I never fought Harl in the the Hermits. What's it called?
Yeah.
And I never did the scene where Kid talks to Serge about the orphanage being burned down. It skips, so which is interesting. But still, is a thing. But yeah, that guide, when I was looking at and like they're talking, all they did was talk about optimizing the run or whatever. and they're like, yeah, these are the people that you need, and blah blah blah. And I was like, I think I'm good.
Check out Brady Games Chrono Cross guide. I reviewed on my channel, not plugging, but
plug.
They actually encourage you not to use the guide to finish your playthrough without it. So shame on you, Jay. No, I'm joking. But you know what? I mean, it's probably valuable that you got that experience with it too. I think. I personally found that except for the Garai battle, and I think like getting the Chrono Cross or whatever it was when you fight one of those dragons, those hidden dragons or something. I did not need to refer to the guide from a combat perspective. There were 45 bosses, like 1 or 2 of them gave me difficulty, and so I didn't find that like a character like, let's say Lena wasn't usable later. I was using Nikki as my blue guy, for the primary beginning of the game. So that's kind of what I appreciated about it.
I honestly, I ran into a lot more hurdles because I wasn't like doing things like using summons and whatnot. I still think the hardest boss for me is Dario, because I'm just like, dude, how are you supposed to beat this guy? Yeah. Like, I want to resolve the story or the quest, and I want to get this fucking sword. But I'm just like, dude, how am I supposed? I can't grind, so how am I supposed to beat this guy? And it was such a pain in the ass before I finally actually beat him. So yeah, I did need to look up a guide for that. Same thing for Fate, because I was telling Spence, like, I was kind of pissed. Like, I thought I was at the end of the game, and then it's should come as no surprise. You beat Fate, and then there's like 8 other bosses to fight.
Yeah.
I thought I was almost done. What the hell, man? So, yeah.
Well, you're talking about how difficult some of the bosses are. I think that's a great segue into combat. Let's talk about combat in this game, because it is one of my favorite combat mechanics of any RPG. I adore the combat in this game. And thank you, Teddy, for adding some of these notes in here. There's a 3-attack system, an element grid, a color grid. We have summons, and if you're bold, you could find some double and triple techs. What do you guys think of the combat in Chrono Cross?
I wish there were more double and triple techs.
Oh my! Well, that ties into the character count to me. It's like
so we're talking about character viability. If you want a viability for double triple attacks, I hope you enjoy using Turnip or like some of these throwaways. I could actually tell you which ones they are.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Well, I know one is stupid because it involves Sprig and New Game Plus, because you get it from beating Slash, and then you beat Slash and you can triple tech with, I believe, Kid and Surge. And I'm like, I got to do that much just to get a triple tech? That's fucking bullshit.
So there are a total of 2 triple tech skills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 double tech skills. We run down the list?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right, so the double techs. X Strike is Glenn and Surge's double tech skill. Mm-hmm. Double Take is Kid and Mel's double tech skill. Sword Storm is Guile and Sneff's double tech skill. Pitch Black is Growbike and Norris's double tech skill. I love Growbike, by the way. Vital Force is Viper and Radius's double tech skill. Dragon Spike is Karsh and Zoa's double tech skill. See, there's one I can kind of agree with. Mickey and Nikki, his double tech skill is Flamenco.
That one makes sense to you.
Raggy Rider is Leah and Draggy's double tech skill. I can get that one. It's like the Ayla, just kind of
aesthetic.
Yeah. Toss Salad is Turnip and Neo Fio's double tech skill.
I thought that was a single tech, but okay.
I'll make this a party. Triple attacks, Surge, Lena, and Razily have Delta attack. It's a white attack. And Surge, Kid, and Sprig have the Z/, which is a blue attack.
Yeah. Yeah, did you hear that? Surge? Surge, who's inherently white. What is Sprig again? Sprig is...
black, I think.
Green.
Oh, green, yeah.
And then you have Kid, who's red, and it gets you blue. What the fuck?
Look, one of the things I think everybody loves about Chrono Trigger is the double text and the triple text, and just how like they kind of you get them, and it's fun.
That's what everyone talks about.
Everyone.
I thought you were talking about Chrono Cross. You're like, I'm joking.
Oh yeah. And like one of the things they love is like, oh yeah, and you can like every character you can like get a cool double attack with, or double attack or triple attack, and it's like, oh, like it's a great like progression. It's a way to enhance your connection with your other party members. In this game, it's like the exact opposite. They're like, we're going to very rarely do it, and it'll be the most inconvenient parties we can find.
Yeah,
and
not all of them are payoffs. Like Glenn and Surge initially, I didn't really care for dash and slash. I was just like, whatever. Use them separately. I'm sorry, X-Strike. My bad. But I will say, it's like everyone copied off of Magus. It's like, don't double tech with anybody unless you absolutely have to. It's ridiculous, man. It's bullshit. I wish there was more.
I'll tell you what, though. Once I figured out about like level 7 tech skills, once I got Fargo's, it was invincible all the way. That and the frog summons too, which I didn't get too many summons. Did you guys?
I got them all. You got them all through the dragons.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I just didn't find a way to use them or something. So the hard thing about the summons, and it's funny because we're starting with the most complicated stuff first.
Yeah, and we'll slowly get to the fact that you can attack.
Yeah,
apologize to the viewers on YouTube and Reddit. We're sorry. No, the summons, it sucks because to do the summons, you have to have a full field effect. And to have a full field effect, you have to have 3 elements of the same color used. But what that doesn't account for is that your party is at different agilities than the enemies that you're facing on the field. And so they can interrupt your sequencing so that you are building the full color for your summons. And if they are actually aiding to that, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to help you, because they are of an element color generally that, because it's the same as whatever the summons you're using, it's going to be weak on them. So I found summons very, very difficult to pull. You get the white one and, I can't wait to use it on Surge. Yeah, I think I used it once in the entire game.
It's so overpowered.
Yeah, Saints.
The white one is insanely strong.
That's how I beat
heals
Fate.
Your party too.
Yeah. But to that point, when I was using Frog Prince to try and beat Dario, because I had Marcy on my team, I was like, this is stupid. I pretty much have to hope he does, was it Nimble or Numble, which is blue. And then I have to be able to cast turn blue onto me, and then be able to cast another blue attack or another blue ability before he does something else like murder me, and then go from there. It's so dumb. And every other time I got it wrong, it was run away and reset.
Yeah, summons are pretty dumb. The only reason I adapted to using them was to get the rainbow equipment. And it's not even necessary, but it'd be nice to have on a New Game Plus, so I figured I'd just go for it.
Yeah, that is the pro tip, by the way, to run away if you're like having a hard time in battles. Although in Garai's battle, that was the one battle I couldn't run away from, and that was the one that was kicking my ass.
Yeah, I soft reset like 5 times. It's like, this is bullshit. I fucking hate that fight. But White Knight, man, White Knight saves the day.
And you mentioned it, but the color grid, every attack. And again, we're going backwards on on this list of complicated things, but. Color grid would be every move you do as far as an element, that color element will fill the grid. It's not really that, like, it seems like it's going to be complicated or hard to understand at first, but it's really just moves are stronger if they're on the grid. And if the grid's filled up, they're a little bit stronger then.
Yeah.
And if you have the opposite color, then it will weaken that element. But because you're using it, you're already breaking the sequence. It ends up becoming kind of a non-issue, I think.
Yeah, it's not. There's a lot of really cool mechanics in this that aren't really fleshed out as well as I'd like, but I don't know. I do enjoy it. We have 2 more things to talk about: the attack system or the element grid. I guess going backwards.
Element grid.
Let's just tackle that element grid. Okay.
There's no element grid.
Do you want to tackle the math on this one? All right, go ahead. Let's hear it.
So the element grid, there are 6 primary elements. There, the 6 colors that we had mentioned previously: white, black, green, red, blue, yellow. They don't necessarily correspond that way. But each one is strong to an opposite color: white to black, yellow to blue, red to green. Did I get that? Red to blue, red to blue, and yellow to green. Yeah. And then vice versa for all of those. And then also, if an element is used on the same enemy of the same color element or against yourself of the same color element, it'll be weak to it. You get a number of different skills. You could think of these as like in Pokemon, your technical machines or something. You might get Fireball. You might get what's another one? I haven't played this in a minute.
Magma Bomb.
Magma Bomb, right?
If you're using
and so
water,
one
you'll
will be
get a
like a
cure.
level 1 element versus a level 2, and it goes all the way up to like 7 or 8.
8.
I don't know if actually there's any
It might
nines,
even go to
but
9, but yeah, 8 for sure.
And so every character has a number of spots on this kind of like sideways pyramid, I guess you could think of it, that's ever growing as your overall level grows within the game. As you're fighting more bosses, you're going to get these levels naturally. And so you can put more elements according to these power levels, so to speak, on the grid. So like Fireball is a level 1, so you would probably put it in the level 1 slot. Magma Burst is level 2, so you can't put it in level 1, or you could, but it would be -1.
Yeah.
You could put it on a level 3 slot, it would be +1. Those are also kind of non-issues because the difference in power, depending on where you put it, is very low. But I think one thing that's great about the element grid is that there are no restrictions as far as putting any color element on a party member of that element color. Say you have Kid, who is a red element color. That doesn't mean she can't use white or blue elements unless they are specifically designated, which very few are, as only for characters of that element color.
Yeah.
How am I doing with this so far?
Great.
Good.
The only thing we got to talk about well, I mean, okay. A summon is a 6 or 8 star?
I thought it was
Yeah,
7.
okay.
It might be 7.
So there are also 3 tech skills, and then summon skills would be on the highest bracket of that. But the level 7 tech skill is hold on a sec. There are 3 tech skills: a level 3, a level 5, and a level 7. The level 3 and the level 5 come naturally for every character, and they are distinct from all of the other characters. Each one has their own moves. It's kind of a flashy move. Thing for Chrono Cross. The level 7 you have to unlock by doing some story tied sequence, which most of the time is optional for that character, but a great way to kind of get to know your character and to open up the party, let's just say.
All right. And then the only thing we have to talk about is how to fill up the element grid, which has to do with the 3 attack system.
You guys can do that one.
All right, I'll do this one. So the element grid is filled up in combat. It starts out at 0 unless you have an item that will help you do otherwise. And it's filled up through the 3 attack system. The 3 attack system has a low, which is a high percentage hit. Well, okay. It has 3 attacks. There's a 1, 2, and a 3. A 1 is a low damage, high percentage hit. The 2 is medium, and the 3 is a high damage, low percentage hit. So what that means is you have a better chance of hitting a 1 than you would a 3, but you will do less damage. That's the basic idea of the combat system, and I absolutely adore it because it makes every fight feel more visceral and feel more of like a strategic battle on how you're playing instead of just an attack button and then your turn is over. Now, the attack, that number also correlates with your stamina. So if you have 7 stamina, you can do a 1 attack and then you'll have 6 stamina. You can go in combat until you run out of stamina. Now a 3 will take 3. So you have to adjust accordingly. But once you're past 0, your turn ends. So with that being said, that number also affects the element grid. And you'll progress further to the right depending on what number you choose. So if you've done a 1 attack, you will gain 1 square to the right on the element grid, working your way up to whatever the max is, and you can't save anything, but there you go. So if you're playing as a more of an attacker, like my Surge usually is, then you focus on doing a lot of damage with your attacks. So you might do a 2, 3, or you might try to focus on just getting strong hits that way. If you're a spellcaster, your main focus of attacking is just to build up the element grid. And you would do that with like a Guile who has actually a reverse element grid that's what JD was talking about earlier. His actually opens up to the right instead of right to left, or sorry, left to right. But if you're a mage, you're trying to do that. So what's cool about the system is that it enables you to play in a different way depending on what your goal is as a character. So I really adore it, and I love how flexible it is, and it's definitely the high point of combat for me. And I know that if you're hearing this and you haven't played Chrono Cross, your head might be spinning a little bit, but it becomes second nature about, I don't know. I guess I should ask you guys, how quickly did you guys adapt to this kind of combat system?
I'd probably say by like Viper Manor. I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense. Like, because the other thing too is like you need when you fight Lucia's little things, her little experiments. Like, I actually wiped on that. And I was like, oh, great. So going back, it made a little bit more sense. I didn't really have too much like sphere grids or sphere grids. Final Fantasy 10. Yeah.
That's the second time you've done that, by the way.
Is it really?
Bring that Final Fantasy 10 in here.
I haven't played it in a minute. I don't know what it is. But yeah, the element grid, I didn't really have too much to work with, but I was starting to pick up on it. I think I really started to understand it when I was doing when I was playing as by the time you already switched to Lynx, because I'm leveling up more. So everything's a little bit more expanded. You get other characters. You see how their element grid is set up. So I'd say fully understand it like by the time I changed, but like I was figuring it out by Viper Manor. I was just like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Took me probably, so the first time I played this, I played it for about 3 hours and put it down. I just didn't remember much about it, but I definitely didn't have a grasp of what the hell I was doing then. It was complicated and I was getting confused. This time I probably got a decent grasp of it 3 hours in, around Viper Manor. I wouldn't say I mastered it until very late in the game though. In fact, I was doing the attack building in an unadvisable manner. I was going in terms of accuracy. I was doing that for every single character. I was doing a 1, 2, and 3 attack when they actually advise for your high hitters to do a fierce attack, which is your level 3, and try and do another fierce attack, and then you could do a level 1 attack, and then you can bust the element out. That's actually the important thing to think about, is like how well are you setting yourself up to use elements, and are you going to need them? Generally, this was an element saturated game for me. It's like, make sure you're getting your elements out on the field and that you're recharging your stamina with the other characters by the time that you have casted them. So you actually don't want to miss attacks later on, because that can really set you up so that you're actually losing turns, and that can be devastating. But it's the only way to get healing. There are a couple other things I loved about this game. We talked about the runaway thing, but I love how after every battle, it gives you the option to heal from remaining element usage. You don't have to go into your inventory and bust out items to heal, and there is no necessary mana bar, so that your characters are potentially depleting mana throughout the experience. It was actually just super convenient and really helped me with things like exploration and even just advancement through the game. So in general, I know it sounds complicated with the description if this is new to you, if you haven't played Chrono Cross, but it becomes second nature after a while. It was not the intentions of the developers to make something convoluted and complicated. You could play a PC game for that. Maybe you could play Radical Dreamers. But Chrono Cross is very much user friendly and accessible once you just play around with it.
One thing I like that you mentioned that at the end of the thing. That's why with Surge, I would do a lot of defending, because I would just build up my elements a lot, and then at the end of the combat, it would auto recover all. It's just a really easy way to get through it, and just you never had to worry about healing because it would just auto cast it.
You could also pick which character you wanted to start with. There was no necessary like agility stat, from what I could tell.
I believe there is.
There is, and I wonder what it affects, because there isn't really nothing. Combat itself isn't affected by it. It might be like dodging, or you're like, because there's no turn order. Like that doesn't exist, so it might be like dodging.
I mean, well, so there's that, but like when I was doing, for instance, Dario, that was the fight I did the most. I had I forgot who I had in place, because they were like, hey, put Riddle in there because she's gonna get fucking killed, and you want her to get killed because you want her to take the first hit, and then you can revive her, because he does that little attack where he throws his sword in the sky and it comes down. And it always hits her. She always gets to move first. But back when I think I had Fargo on my team first, and he never attacked first. It was always someone else. But then the minute I switched to Riddle, she always attacked first. So maybe it does have bearing.
I'm not sure. I looked it up. Agility modifies your evasion rate. So it might be something else. There might be another stat that has to affect that. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Oh, and maybe your hit percentage as well.
For agility?
For agility. Yeah.
Let's look up all these stats.
Evasion and percentage usually go hand in hand.
Hold on. Okay.
Don't know.
Hit points, obviously, are just how much health you have. Strength determines how much damage you'll do with physical attacks and physically based techniques. Resilience determines how much damage you take from physical attacks and physically based techniques. Magic damage. Magic resilience, magic resistance. Accuracy is, you're right. How often you hit with physical attacks. While important with the best weapons on star level 9. Okay, this has to do with maxing it out. Oh, that's accuracy. I'm sorry. Accuracy determines your physical attacks. Agility is evading. Attack is irrelevant because it's based on strength, defense. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. It's pretty... I mean, the stats themselves are pretty simple and clear-cut. So yeah, that's weird that there is no... Because a lot of games will have that agility to calculate turn order. This game doesn't really do that at all. So... What do you guys think overall of this combat system? I mean, we got... At the time, the main combat system is the active time battle system. The one brought in Chrono Trigger, and you see it in Final Fantasy 7, 9, etc. How does this stack up?
I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm actually okay with ATB and non-ATB games. Like Final Fantasy X, for instance, it's not ATB. And that's okay. Final Fantasy 9 is, correct?
Yeah.
7 is ATB. 8, I believe, is ATB.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I don't think it's a problem, and I don't think it's a detriment. I think true turn-based RPGs still have a place, because so long as you make your game like strategic enough, it really doesn't matter. Like if everyone's just attacking, yeah, okay, that's boring. But if you're like, okay, hey, I need a second to plan out what I'm doing, especially in Chrono Cross because it is more complex, especially if you're trying to fucking summon, it's very easy to be like, dude, I need to plan this shit like 3 steps in advance. Yeah. I need to get this guy to get his shit back. So I'm going to attack a little bit, and then I'm going to, cast this attack. This guy will get his stamina to do this. And then we allow this guy to summon, hopefully, or something like that. So I think it's great.
The thing is, like, traditional turn-based RPG will usually just involve you picking the commands, and yes, there is customization and concept driving, like strategizing and how will you take down enemies, and there are different ways you can do it. This is very much a team effort because every character's actions directly affect the next character's actions, what they're actually able to do, and so planning does become a part of it. But I rarely see a game that is like this conceived, I guess, in terms of your internalization of how is the party doing. Other games, like we're playing SMT3 right now, okay, a demon dies, okay, cool, I'll summon another one. I know I can summon this one, they'll be pretty effective. In this one, it's really just like you are the team, you have to hold it down, you need to set it up so that kid can pull off the level 7 magma shooter or whatever the tech skill is, which I knew. Also, so that you can pull recover alls, which are blue skills, with whatever your blue character is, or the white character, because they have those as well. So I think it's very interesting how it makes you conceive of combat, going into combat, and also just and getting the opportunity to see some of the flair and the flashiness of tech skills. Maybe I want to see Starkey's, calling down the Star Guardian in this turn, or maybe next time I just want to see Surge do Luminaire, and so there is a lot of thought that goes into it. And so I really thought it was a very thoughtful experience, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to... Oh, one thing to talk about combat real quick. What do you guys think of the fact that there's no experience in this game? It's just a star-based system.
I actually think it works to the detriment of the game. The main reason why I say that is because if we're comparing Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger. I think the benefit of Chrono Trigger is being able to go, I don't need to grind, but I have it if I need it. Meanwhile, Chrono Cross is, if you can't grind here, or if you can't beat this boss here, like that's, I guess you can argue like it's more like, all right, you need to bump up your strategy or maybe try a different team comp or something like that. Or maybe you're not in the right area at the right time, which is what I was constantly thinking with Dario's fight or Fate. Couldn't do anything really about Fate, but with Dario, it's just like, all right, let me just soft reset. I saved just outside. Let me try something else. You know, it's a little bit easier to try and go, all right, hit the teleporter, try somebody else, redo a team comp. Let me see what I can do. I get that, but at the end of the day, I'm really just trying to progress. And I think Chrono Trigger provided challenge that was more finely tuned than Chrono Cross did. Sometimes Chrono Cross, like, I don't know about you guys, every time I fought a new person and I saw them running up to me, I'm like, I hope he doesn't hit 3 times. and every time it's like 150, 190, you know, just, oh no, we're ruined. So there were definitely points where I was like, fuck, man, here we go, we're about to die. Or if I see one of their attacks go off and I'm like, that shit looks epic, we're probably all dead, you know, kind of a thing. When you fight Salt and Pepper, and I forget which one it is, they do Thunderstorm, and that shit went off. I was like, we're dead. This shit looks epic. It hurt me like 80. I was like, oh, thank God, thank the Lord. But yeah, I think I wish I would have been able to grind in some elements. I don't think that's a bad word, and I'm okay with grinding. I really
do I have the quote for you. It doesn't mention grinding per se, but this is from producer / designer Hiromichi Tanaka. He was a big guy in the interviews, but says, well, this is with regard to like the concept of the new battle system and meshing with the hardware. I don't have the best quote for it, but the developers of the Xenogears battle system started over from square one, trying to see what kind of interesting, enjoyable battle system they could come up with. ... If you want, you can still play as if you're working for experience levels. He's talking about Chrono Cross here, as in older games. I designed the battle systems for Final Fantasy 1 through 3, but by that point, the orthodox XP battle-based system was more or less perfected. There are actually a couple points, not many, but a few where I did grind for that +1 or +2 HP. I think like in the sewers or something before I fought the little cockroach or whatever. Yeah, I didn't need it, but I remember doing it. And it's different. And a lot of my tactics came in with either finding new elements that I hadn't purchased from somebody. Like I would need to get more heal spells or maybe more red attacks, or, you know, maybe I would need to take them off of other party members that I was previously using and use them that way, or change up the party just slightly because of, like, you know, element opposition, which I mean, that is kind of annoying because, you know, I would have liked it to maintain a strong 3 throughout like most of the core experience. I understand there are parts in the narrative where they have to pull out Kid, Harl, etc. But I didn't feel it oppressed me to the same sense that it did you. I did have trouble with the Garai battle. That for sure gave me a hard time. The Fate one was challenging, but I think by that point I had a strong enough grasp of the way that my party worked and what my element availability was.
I think I'm okay with it in retrospect. But I would still like to see a game that has this combat system, but also has an experience system attached to it. Because I just like seeing the numbers go up. I'm kind of
a little glitch that worked for you, right?
Like what?
A little glitch for you, like after you'd beat a boss, you'd stay in the area and fight monsters, and they give you like massive stat boosts or something.
Does that happen?
I thought you told me that.
No. So what happens is you'll kill a boss, and then you'll get a big stat boost, and then you'll fight like 3 or 4 enemies, and sometimes the 4th or 5th, whatever it is, will give you another decent
like
bump.
Strength up or something.
Yeah, it'll give you an actual instead of just HP.
Then you're like, we're killing it.
yeah. Then you're like, oh shit!
It's on links. Strength up. I ain't going back.
But it was sometimes though, and it's like they're giving it out like it's precious, which I guess it is. But And I would prefer, I think, a more traditional experience-based system. I just like seeing those numbers go up, and it attaches me to the characters more if I'm like, oh, you're about to level up, like let's push you a little bit right now and do this.
Here is what I did like. I mean, because even after those standard battles, will usually just be like HP +1, like maybe every other battle or every 2 or 3 battles out of 3 or 4. I liked that it was every battle, and that it's not like I need to do more and more battles in order to level up every time. So in that way, I felt like every single battle was rewarding, as opposed to just like, you do like the classic level 99 Pokemon level up, and you just beat like a level 50, Geodude, and you don't even see the bar move. So it just feels futile. I didn't feel it was futile in this game.
No, I got you.
I sort of feel like the real, I guess, sense of, progression, or if you're doing good, is more randomized, though. Like, if you look at how the stat distribution is, ideally, if your character isn't killed in that boss fight or dead on the ground when the boss dies, they get the stat increase, right? Depending on how you're trying to make that character, sometimes they miss an important stat. So let's just say I beat a boss, but I didn't get strength up for Lynx or, Surge. And then, okay, so now I'm down 1 strength. And then, and this is really based off of going off of that thing I was using to sort of catch up. Is they're like, you need to have 18 strength at this point. And I'm like, obviously I'm not following that because I'm like, I don't give a shit. Right? At the beginning portions of the game, you want to get up to 18 strength. And it's like, people are thinking that way throughout the entire game. It's like, that's how they gauge if your Surge is like really good or something, is all right, he needs this much strength, or your Riddle needs to have this much magic power or something like that, like, which is always just strange to me, because how we normally look at that is just levels. Hey, I'm level 60, this is what that brings. But here they isolate it down to one specific thing, usually an offensive stat, but isolate it down to that one thing, and then that's it. They don't even look at health, because it's just implied.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
Weird overall. Weird. If you're gonna have a weird leveling system, it's gonna be viewed weird, and it's just the way it is.
Things will never be the same.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's talk about alternate dimensions. We briefly mentioned it before. We talked about this pretty substantially. You want to skip this part, or because I don't really have any specific notes, but we'd have the home world and another world. Yeah. Okay. Let's just hit up memorable places, and we'll talk about a cool plot twist after that. But we got El Nido. I'm just throwing them out there. Viper Manor, Zelbus. My favorite area of the entire game, the Dead Sea.
Yeah.
Dragon Isles, Chronopolis, and Dinopolis. Chronopolis is also one of my favorites. There's a lot of really memorable places here. What are your guys' favorite spots to explore?
I do like the Dead Sea. I like the concept of it, just because of how everything is just like frozen over or whatever, and it's just this vast area that's been blocked off by the Masamune. I am, like I said, going back to say that earlier areas, like, I really do like Termina. I grew up thinking Termina and Viper Manor were connected. And then when they're like, no, you got to walk around this mountain to get there. It's on the other side of this mountain. You're like, oh, okay, cool. So, all right, whatever. Not the one that you have to pass through. It's, it's all on the world map. But still, Viper Manor's cool, I guess. I remember it being bigger. But Termina's cool. Goldove is all right, I guess. But yeah, Chronopolis.
Did you know in Viper Manor there's an Easter egg? Where you're talking to Balthazar? You can see his epic, his time travel machine.
It's the Neo Epic or whatever.
Yeah.
No,
it's pretty cool.
Is it in the back or something? Is he just like,
no?
Hey!
It's in a room.
Yeah, it's a chat. Oh, I think Spencer pointed out to me. Sent me a picture or something.
It's in a room.
Can't remember though.
It's like a special thing you can go to. It's like behind the counter, but you go and it enters a separate room, and it's big. You can like walk on it and everything.
Do they say anything like, oh,
No.
This shit's weird?
No.
Of course. because it's not a sequel.
No, it's nothing to do with Chrono Trigger.
Got nothing.
It's just that it has the time travel device that was in it.
What the fuck ever. Anyway, yeah, those places are cool to me.
I don't know. I think when it really kind of opened up to me, like obviously loved like the kind of like beach setting, like in the early game. I really did like the dragon sessions. Try not to say Dragon Quest. It felt like it was a bit more adventurous, and I think Dinopolis, is that one of them, like the one with the green dragon?
Dinopolis is the very end game.
Oh, okay. So there's one of them where it's like you go into like that part of the map that you haven't been able to go to. That's like a huge stone, not monument, but like mountain or something. And then you have to take a pterodactyl or like
the
navel? Hydra. Yeah, you have to call like that little dragonfly thing to come pick you up to bring you to Gaia's navel. And first off, the massive dragonfly sequence is awesome. Also, like the Hydra thing. I think the Hydra thing works so well between dimensions because it's like you need to go back or not back in time. You need to go to the different timeline in order to get the venom from the Hydra. I'm probably butchering this so bad, but the venom from the Hydra in order to save Kid. Mm-hmm. Which is not available in the current timeline. They're like, we need this, but it doesn't exist anymore. How will we get? And all of that's dead in the current, like the marshes there.
Yeah.
So like that's really memorable. And then like the oversized dinosaurs in Gaia's navel, and then like you meet like the little Ayla baby, and she's like a powerhouse. Those are super memorable to me. I really like those boss fights, man. Those dragons are cool.
To me, the Dead Sea is probably one of the coolest moments in gaming for me that I've ever experienced. The music is phenomenal. I like how subtle it is, just like subdued. And you're kind of seeing like a futuristic world that's just trapped in time. And I just loved walking down the highway. Really cool Easter egg on there too is Johnny from the future. You can just see him just dead and like destroyed on the street, which is, if you remembered Chrono Trigger, it's just a cool Easter egg. It's like, oh, Johnny's here. He's fucking dead.
Yeah, you killed him. There's a rainbow sword in his heart.
Yeah. Chrono's just like smiling, pointing at you.
Yeah. It's also when you can start seeing the Lavos tech videos or whatever, like the vlogs on Lavos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when it starts to become apparent, like, whoa, what is this Chrono Trigger connection?
Yeah. Wow. You're going into like a mall. There's like a big mall and you're just walking around it and there's all these like shadows and ghosts in it. It's just a freaking awesome like part of the game. Because the whole game before was just specifically like an island setting. And then you finally get in there and it's this weird futuristic thing. It's so contrasting, but it's also so mysterious and so odd. And then from that point on, the game is like, by the way, there's like there's another world that's like affecting this one. And then by the time you get to Chronopolis, I think it's got a similar, although less, to me it's less, but it's still really cool to know, like, see all the different, like, experiments they're doing on you and all the cool, like, they built all they terraformed your world and messing around with everything. And there's even a little cool Radical Dreamers Easter egg where it's just like, this is another world or another dimension, Radical Dreamers, and it's got Kid in it and stuff. It's cool. Really neat. Yeah, good environments in this game. Let's talk about the big twist in this game. The first one, the big twist, I guess, is that Chrono dies, but I guess that would be as much of a twist as that game had.
I don't know if that's a twist. I kind of feel like that's just like a shock to your system, I guess.
Isn't that what a twist is?
No, a twist implies the way you looked at something is different. Like with this new thing, it changes the perspective of it, right? So like if you're talking about Sixth Sense, the whole time he was dead, that's the twist because now it's through a new lens you're seeing it.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, in this one, the big moment is your big enemy for a while there is Lynx. And in this one, you swap bodies with him. and
Dun,
actually
dun,
become
dun.
links for. There's like 3/3 of the game. Well, obviously, the game is in thirds. The first third, there's 3/3. I'm a real mathematician.
Killing it. You got a 66.
It's 2/3% chance of winning. Well, the first third you're Surge. The second third you're Lynx, and then you get back into Surge's body. What do you guys think about switching bodies with your villain?
It's super cool because I look at that the same way. We played Chrono Cross, or my brother played Chrono Cross first, and then when I played Chrono Trigger, and after like putting it all together, I love the fact that they're okay with subverting your main character. In Chrono Trigger, Chrono dies. In Chrono Cross, in Chrono Cross, cat hair. Sorry. In Chrono Cross, your character switches with the villain. Like they're perfectly okay with being like, this character is going to go through some shit, and I really do appreciate when they do that. I wish more games did that.
Was so mad. Lost my whole party.
Yeah.
It's like just getting the groove of it. You know, it was a badass, and you know, Korcha was okay. Throwing a spear. But be then reduced to nothing. I got to experience what it was like with Harl, though. It was super cool. Kind of like murky, like you know, like trying to understand who or what she was. Like, there's a cool like little saga there, and so I mean, I appreciate it as well from the perspective standpoint.
And there's a reason I didn't talk about Lynx or Harl yet. I wanted to talk about.
Didn't talk about
here.
Marl either.
You didn't talk about Marl much. She kind of followed Chrono along, but yeah, with the Link. So I want to talk about Lynx and Harl here. We'll talk about Lynx first because he's way more important. With Lynx, he is. I mean, it's not revealed quite yet at this point, but he is your father.
Yeah.
Twisted into a panther demon, or into a panther because Surge is afraid at the time, was afraid of panthers because he was attacked by a panther demon.
It's such a bullshit reason, by the way. That's so dumb because it's like he's not afraid now. You know, like I am still afraid of spiders.
Yeah.
If you transformed my archenemy into a spider demon, no conversation is happening. I don't want to be in the same room with that bitch. But okay, I used to be afraid of these guys. I'm not anymore. Well, I'm gonna be it for all time. Okay, fine. Fuck it. Be a panther demon. No one gives a shit. All right.
But he's turned into that by fate because it knows that you're afraid of panthers.
It's the frozen flame. Not?
No,
fate.
Fate manipulates your dad when you guys arrive in that through that storm. And I don't blame you. It is needlessly convoluted.
Frozen flame heals.
Yes,
heals
the frozen flame
Surge.
heals.
Yeah.
But
then
fate corrupts.
Fate corrupts your dad
Because fate can't. Because the you become the arbiter.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So fate corrupts your dad to kill you.
And it's this whole this whole weird mess that apparently Balthazar still knows what's going on. We should just ask him. But essentially your dad is Lynx transformed by fate to now kill you. And then you switch bodies with him. And it's all kinds of messy, but Lynx is basically your dad, and it's very weird that you swap bodies with him.
I don't know. I have the quote here from the wiki. Shala's storm nullified Chronopolis' defenses and allowed Surge to contact the frozen flame. Approaching it healed Surge, but corrupted his father, turning him into Lynx. So, I mean, it's possible that, fate's...
It wouldn't really make sense for the frozen flame to do it because the frozen flame wouldn't have an ulterior motive at that point for the corruption in the first place.
Okay.
So it makes sense that Fate's doing it because Fate just lost the ability to utilize the frozen flame and is therefore now trying to kill, or succeeds in killing Surge in that timeline. So that's what
supercomputer designed to do.
Yeah. Well, and here's the wiki. So I think it's a combination of the two. So Wazuki When Wazuki took Surge to be healed by the frozen flame in Chronopolis, he was corrupted by its emanations, so frozen flames, and subsequently was subject to mind control by the Fate supercomputer. Since the Prometheus circuit locked Fate's access to the frozen flame, Fate shaped Lynx with the objective of killing Surge and restoring the connection.
So that just sounds even stupider.
Well, yes, it's very stupid, but it is both. So it's the frozen flame, like, I guess we're saying it unlocked Lynx's brain, or sorry, Wazuki's brain, for Fate to be able to manipulate it, and then also change him into a panther.
Why did it heal a baby then?
I don't know. I don't know these answers, Jade.
What was the purpose of Fate? Like, who was Fate serving in the first place? Was Fate serving the dragons?
No, humans. Fate was serving
humans. Its purpose was to protect the... okay, I'm starting to get... So, Fate protected Frozen Flame from the dragons. Mm-hmm. The defenses were down.
Because all the storm.
So, the storm, and so Surge gets healed by the frozen flame. Mother gets corrupted, and then his purpose is to destroy Surge.
Well, I guess his purpose is to switch bodies with him so that they can get control back to the frozen flame.
Right. Oh, but the thing is, Surge is prophesied to destroy the world, so that's probably the rationale for the mind control brainwashing bit. But how does Surge even get back home safely?
A boat?
That's a good question. You know what? It's probably Scala. She just teleports people. Does whatever the fuck she wants.
She cloned him.
she sent a Surge clone.
So here's the thing. Here's what I think actually happened. I think Wazuki actually did go back with Surge. Right? Because they don't say that he didn't leave.
Yeah, they don't say that he didn't leave for sure.
They say, what's his name didn't leave? Miguel. Lena's dad. Yeah, he didn't leave. So he was forced to be the little time guard there. So it makes sense they both went. He could have either been a panther or been transforming into a panther on the way back. It makes sense.
He's like, Dad, why do you have a tail?
Yeah, he's like, don't ask questions.
Don't worry about me.
Yeah, it's like, stop cleaning yourself that way. And he's like, don't worry about it. Anyway, but so he's at the very least fucked up then. Fate, it's implied Fate can manipulate and has been manipulating things without them even being in Chronopolis. So makes sense to be messing with Wazuki at this point, and then probably drowns in Arnie Village, drowns the baby in Arnie Village. That's what makes the most sense, because the villagers in Arnie Village say that he drowned. The last they saw him, he was affected by this panther demon and went off. So they could have just as easily said, "Oh, well, he died from his wounds from the panther demon." But no, he had to have come back because they say he drowned. It makes more sense. There's implications. I'm implying a couple of things.
Yeah.
What else are we going to do?
Right. Yeah. It's so hard to figure out exactly what happened in this game because it doesn't tell you, but it tells you all these little details.
That makes sense because in another world, which is the world where Surge dies, Lynx is kind of a primary figure.
Yeah.
In terms of like the armies and such. So I could see that.
At that point, he begins manipulating Poor and also the Acadia Dragons. Works out. Or Dragoons. And then works out.
So that's the story of Lynx. the guy that's your dad and looks like a panther. Let's talk about Harl, who is very interesting. She is actually the 7th dragon god.
Favorite DS game.
7th dragon. Oh my god, I have that. Jeez, I forgot that game existed. How funny. But yeah, she's the 7th dragon and is actually working counter to Lynx the entire time, trying to get you to revive the dragons, which Fate was blocking. So she's kind of this really... she's so fast. She's like this weird double agent, And then it's such a tragic moment if you kind of understand what's going on when Lynx is like, oh, I got to start killing these dragon gods, and she's like, I gotta go, and they're like, she's talking to Starkey, and she's
wondering why she kind of dipped out.
She's like,
that makes sense.
Like, why are you crying? And she's just like, I can't tell you, but things suck. And then it's like, bye, and then she leaves because she does like you.
Yeah,
but she knows that she has to be your enemy.
I have a hypothesis on that. Let's talk about everything else, and you can tell me if you think I'm right or if I'm wrong about why she likes you.
Okay, but I don't want it to seem like I'm the answer to that question because I have no idea.
Isn't it called the Spencer?
I'm just a guess.
So first thing, all right, Fate effectively split up the dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Did Fate split up the dragons and create the elements, or were the elements already created by Fate and then split into the dragons that assigned to them?
I would assume the elements were already a thing.
Because they say that Fate created that shit, by the way.
Oh, it does? It does say that Fate...
That's why I'm like, what the fuck? What can't Fate do at this point? Like, holy shit, you just lost to a 17-year-old. You know what I mean? It seems a little weird, but whatever. All right, so whether Fate did or didn't, so you believe that it was already there, split into that. So would you theorize that Harl is actually the Chrono Cross? Because she's the seventh element by that definition?
Man, you lost me. I'm not
So the seventh element to beat the Time Devourer is the Chrono Cross. They legit call it the element. So if all of the dragons are assigned to a particular, what's it called, and are merged with the Time Devourer, would you say Harl would be effectively a representation of the Chrono Cross?
Isn't she vital in creating the dragon god?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's a part of it, yeah. Well, I mean, technically, she wasn't a part of it initially. She wasn't a part of the Dragon God initially. The Dragon God existed by itself, but was then split, and then they created her during the power outage.
Yeah.
So she wasn't initially a part of it. So if she's vital or not is its own sort of debate. But
I guess she would be the Chrono Cross then, at least a representation of it.
A representation is what I was thinking, because like her innate is she's black, right? Mm-hmm. But it just doesn't make sense because you already have a black dragon. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, my first thing. Second thing is, are you sipping the juice that they just created another character out of thin air? Because I kind of find that a little bit ridiculous.
Oh yeah, they did. They did for sure.
Well, no, I know they did. I'm saying
Harl is just made up.
It's the same thing as Scala, where I'm just like, you just create them out of nowhere. What is her fucking?
Well, yeah, that's the whole story of Chrono Cross. Is that they'll describe the story. They'll be like, yeah, and then Scala went into the darkness beyond time. Okay, and then fought with Lavos. Okay, yeah, and then she created a clone of herself and sent her to. It's like, whoa. Hold on. What? There's a lot of that. It's just they just kind of skip over like, oh yeah, this happened, and we're supposed to accept it.
She's apparently created from Scala, right, or believed to be. Mm-hmm. It's the reason why Harl and Kid look alike. And
supposedly,
in my opinion, supposedly, and supposedly, my reason for why I think Harl likes Surge/Lynx is because Kid likes Surge. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's a lot of parallels between them. I used to think they were always the same person, just in a different time zone or time, but I guess not.
Yeah, they're all supposed to be based on Scala, which I don't. There's a long explanation about how that happens. I don't understand it. And I've given up trying to figure it out. But yeah.
I mean, that could go for this whole game, but here we are. Here we are. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
But okay, all right. So we're to believe she is maybe a representation of the Chrono Cross, just by definition of how the relation of the other dragons to other elements. Mm-hmm. And then not only that, she is she's based off of Scala, and she is also a reptilian then?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Then why is she a dragon?
Dragons. Okay, I got this from the wiki. The dragons were aware. Oh, well, let me start off a little sooner. A circuit in Chronopolis then designated Surge Arbiter, simultaneously preventing Fate from using the Frozen Flame by extension. The dragons were aware of this situation, creating a seventh dragon under the storm's cover named Harl, who manipulated Lynx to steal the Frozen Flame for the dragons. She is the product of the dragons.
Right.
Purpose being to bypass that Fate has now used, I guess, Lynx and Surge to protect the Frozen Flame.
So really, the story is just like a polling between human and dragon trying to get control of the Frozen Flame.
Yeah, and you're in the middle.
I guess that's as good of an explanation of this story as we can come up with. So you beat everybody. You beat Chronopolis and you beat Dinopolis, so there's really nothing left except for the Time Devourer. One of the more interesting...
Before we get to the Time Devourer, can I just ask about the Dragon God? Did you guys like that battle?
It reminded me of the Lavos battle, if I'm being honest.
Did you prefer it to the Lavos battle? I know you had an issue with it when we were talking about Chrono Trigger.
Well, so the only difference is we're talking about 6 dragons versus, 30 bosses. So
What about 30? It's probably a good 10 or 15.
Anyway. I'm just saying in general, I would prefer the Chrono Cross battle to it.
Yeah, I did too. Like, this was probably my most intense battle in the game because I was using up all of my elements. By the time I got to the last dragon, I had level 1 and 2 elements to go off of. I couldn't believe I made it out of that fight.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It's like, you use your elements. How are you going to heal? You can't really use like items in battle.
I think it was designed in a way to give you that last boss fight, like final boss fight feeling, without because they knew what the actual boss fight was going to be.
Yeah,
and so they gave you that big like monster to take down.
This to me was the Lavos thing perfected, because the Lavos thing was not scaled at all and was mostly easy. Cool concept, but I thought that the Dragon God was my favorite fight in the game, I'd say.
I think the concept of the element grid lends itself. It adds the element of difficulty into it when you look at the fact that you can only use these things once, unless you have Riddle on your team, right? But you can only really use these things once, so you need to make them count. Your choices really, really matter, as opposed to some of the other fights. It's really just how fast can you burn out before you got nothing left.
You have to go up against every single one of the elements. So like you're gonna be weak to something.
Yeah. You can't really prepare for it. It's just get
your best guy strong or Surge. Yeah.
Get your best guy and figure it out. If we're talking about favorite bosses, I would say mine is Miguel. I just like that the music carries into it, and the setting of it is in that little pinnacle of the Dead Sea. I think that's my favorite boss fight.
I hate that he's white, because he automatically goes weak-minded, and then, all right, photon beam onto one of your innate black characters.
When I was a kid playing this game, that was like a dead stop for me. I couldn't beat him.
That stopped me.
It took me a long time to beat that guy.
Yeah.
All right. Time Devourer. One of the most unique ways to beat a final boss, maybe ever? I would say Earthbound kind of matches it, but in this game, Chrono Cross, you can just kill the guy. So Time Devourer is in his own little world, and to get to him, you're on the beach, and you just hear a bunch of exposition dumped on you, which is terrible. It's like the worst way to end a game, and the worst thing to put into it. The whole thing is just atrocious. I don't know what you guys thought of that, but I abhor it. It's one of the most disappointing parts of a game. Is they're like, oh shit, our game doesn't make any sense. Let's just have 3 characters tell you everything in text boxes. It's like, okay, thanks.
It's definitely a tell rather than show thing, which I guess when you're dealing with time, whatever, I get it, I guess, but still.
I think it's clear they ran out of time on that one.
Well, I was feeling that when they're like, hey, by the way, Chrono Trigger doesn't matter. Here's Chrono Trigger. You know, that's what I was thinking. It's like, y'all ran out of time, but y'all just throwing this shit in here. All right, cool.
That was the most explicit they had been with like the Chrono Trigger, with like Chrono and Marl babies talking to you on the beach. I did find this maybe a little, I don't know about disappointing. Kind of, yes. I got the bad ending the first time. I didn't even know about the Chrono Cross. I wasn't using the guide. So I just beat him the traditional way. It was actually a decent battle, but I was like, why is there a girl in him? And then, you know, I would follow the guide afterwards. You know, I got the bad ending. It sucked. But I followed the guide, and you know, I realized there was a part of the map I hadn't even seen. It was like this foresty area in the beginning. I don't know if you just couldn't go like to that waterfall earlier, or if I just missed it.
Yeah, you can. It's completely useless for 95% of the game.
It's funny. So I ended up doing that. I got the Luca flashback in, you know, the burning house. That was kind of a signature moment. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember it being kind of stand out. And you know, I went through the motions, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, this is where it all is supposed to connect." And I didn't fully understand what the hell Shala was telling me, but I was like, "All right, I'll buy it. It's cool." You know, it doesn't perfectly glue in. Shala was manipulating things from behind the scenes. You know, merged with part of Lavos, trying to rid herself from Lavos because this poses a potential threat to, you know, time and space. But at least that's that one's, you know, curtains closed on that arc.
Yeah, except she's still, her arc is still going. It's so crazy.
I kind of
but real quick, just to beat it, you have to hit it with elements in a certain order to get it to play like a song, and then you unlock Scala from the Time Devourer, and there you go. It's so you don't even have. It doesn't matter how much HP it has. It's just purely you use those tones to separate them, and then you win, and then you get the good ending, quote unquote, which is an FMV of Scala walking around looking for somebody, which we assume is Magus.
For you?
No, I believe it's Surge.
Oh, he's looking for Surge?
She's trying to reunite with Surge. Because there's the thing about them being married in a timeline. Yeah.
So the wedding dress. That's how it closes.
Yeah. So I never took it as Magus. I think she gave up on him. Janice will figure it out.
That's weird.
Yeah, right. I'm in love with my brother.
Well, because she specifically says in a scene earlier, she wrote a letter to you guys, and it says that she's looking for Magus, and that if Magus is there, hi.
I mean, maybe, but here's the thing. All right, this is my point I'm going to make. If you're going to ignore Magus for 99% of the game, you might as well make it 100. Let's just talk about like it's Surge, because Magus wasn't mentioned once. He's not mentioned throughout the story of Chrono Cross, except the one time with Janice, with Kid, where she mentions Janice, I think, right? Yeah. Or not Kid. Luca, right? Doesn't she mention? Someone mentioned
someone
Janice.
That looks like Luca, but isn't, but also has an almost identical name.
Very similar name. Is a scientist. Glasses. Yeah. But like, fuck it. Just ignore him. He never existed. That's pretty much the way I took it. And I was like, all right, it's all about Surge. The wedding dress.
But I don't understand that, because why would she be looking for Surge if she already knew where he was?
Because I think they're two different people at this point, which is the other thing that's confusing, because she talks about having her independence, but she signs the book as Scala Kid Zeal, does she not? So it's like, all right, so are you yourself? Are you now 100% Kid? Because there was also the accent thing, because sometimes she's using it, sometimes she's not. And it's like, what are we fucking doing? Like, which way are we going? I want something definitive to know which way we're going with it. My interpretation, it's Kid who is rejoined with Scala, but it's primarily Kid living a new life, wanting to be.
Right,
Okay, I
right,
can see
right.
that.
Yeah, so maybe the guy that she's married to, because it says a wedding photo of kid and an obscured male sitting on the diary's desk. Maybe that male is not Surge. Maybe it's just somebody, and she's actually wandering around in disappointment, trying to find that lost soul, and she's just making do with her life. So this is the sad story of somebody who settles.
This is the good ending. This good ending is so terrible.
Right.
Jeez. I mean, if we consider how things ended for Chrono, then it's a better ending for sure. But
Well, because
still
of
bad.
Chrono Cross.
Yeah.
If
right.
if you don't take Chrono Cross into consideration, Chrono Trigger is just a happy-go-lucky ending.
Life is great. Well, I mean, hey, that ending is in Chrono Trigger though, not?
Well, again, because of Chrono Cross, they had to put that in there. Or else it wouldn't make any sense.
I'm just saying. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the way that you beat that boss is really anticlimactic if you think about it. Because yeah, at first I did not get the bad ending because I knew that you need the Chrono Cross, and with because I'd watched my brother beat it, and then he's like, I don't know what happened. We were kids, so I didn't know either. I was like, whatever. And then doing it with the Chrono Cross, I thought, when initially going into it, because yeah, I looked up a guide. I mean, let's be honest, who didn't look up a guide just to
get the Chrono Cross ending? That's so
yeah,
vague. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but I mean, let's be honest. And then going into it, it's like I thought there was going to be other restrictions, like he's got to be at a certain number of health. He has to show that he's weak. All these other things. Nope. Just start casting. just go into it. All right, cool. Turn green, turn blue, whatever. And then next thing you know, bam, here we are. You're dead, and we've saved the world. I don't know.
we've got two endings here, but there is a new game plus to Chrono Cross. And this is how you unlock the extra endings. Just like Chrono Trigger, it tried to do a new game plus. It also has a continue plus, where you play where you left off before you finished with some of the features of a plus game. Have you done any of these, Teddy?
I haven't actually started, but I do intend to. I just wanted to take a little break from Chrono Cross after beating it. Sometimes when you play something too close in succession, you just get sick of it. This is not a game I want to get sick of because I was overall pretty favorable about the experience, the characters, and even the customization. I think that there's really a lot here. First off, there are the 11 endings that you can get, and they're designated at different parts of the story. So if you can you can access the Time Devourer at any point in the new game plus, and you take on Time Devourer when you only have Surge in the party and you haven't recruited anybody else. That's an ending. If you do it when you get Poshul, that's a new ending. And so that spans on from the rest of the game. So that's pretty cool. I might be interested to experience it that way, but I don't know what the distinctions and differences are in those endings. I think what I do like are some of these other features. Relief Charm, fast forward, slow motion. I've read that in a new game plus you could beat it as quick as 10 hours, maybe using fast forward. Slow motion is supposedly really helpful actually during the dragon minigame, feeding the dragons.
Oh, I can see that.
I managed to do that one without using slow motion, but it was a pain in the ass. Get bonus bosses in the forms of Ozzy, Flea, and Slash in the Bend of Time. They have that little Watabo looking creature from Dragon Quest Monsters who tells you run around the room 3 times. I know that's your guy's favorite part of Chrono Trigger, but the DS. But he after you do that, he lets you battle those 3, so that's pretty cool. You can pull characters from previous save file in a new game plus, and so by the 3rd playthrough you can be able to access every character in the game. Why would you? I don't know, but people do it. It sounds like an ordeal trying to do it because you have to get to the point where you get the Chrono Cross as an item. I think that's halfway through, but there are a lot of features that you can access here that are very novel and very cool. As far as Continue Plus, I'm not sure what they offer you, but I'm pretty sure you would get fast forward and slow motion or the Relief Charm and the bonus bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine that. Somebody can correct me.
All right. Let's talk about the legacy of Chrono Cross.
Or would you guys do a new game plus?
No. I'm RPG'd out for a little bit, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You know what? I think I would. I think I would.
Oh
Would you
yeah,
hope to experience
the endings.
Chrono Cross new game plus.
The endings, and I want to actually use the rainbow gear because you don't really get to use it much. I mean, if you can get it and it's cool, but the Master Mune is way more powerful than the rainbow prism.
Oh, I think I'm about to disappoint you. I think that's one of like 2 items that goes back. I'll tell you in a sec.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Master Mune doesn't go. The rainbow one does, but the Master Mune is story centric, so they won't give it to you.
I mean, it's not that hard to get back if you've got the rainbow version, right? Just fucking smack Dario around.
Oh yeah, you'll beat the shit out of him, no doubt. But you have to get to that point.
Stop! Take it back.
So it'd be nice to use it. It'd be fun to experience the story in a slightly different way, and mainly to get the endings. It would be cool.
I also wanted to mention about the relief charm. This is kind of interesting. You can substitute Surge with a character during battles. So you can do any 3 characters, not including Surge, but on the overworld, he'll always have to be there.
Yeah, that's kind of unique.
Here's what's missing. All the key items. You have to recruit all the heroes. The Chrono Cross is missing. The Master Mune is gone as well. If you fail to forge a backup weapon, you're stuck with the Sea Swallow until you can buy something later. And you have to get all your summons again. Mm-hmm. Those naturally come.
That makes sense.
Well, I would do it. I would do New Game Plus.
Maybe we'll do that.
Play for the endings as well, but also to switch up the party.
So let's talk about the legacy of Chrono Cross. Technically, I guess it's the 3rd game in the series, but really everyone's looking for that final. Everyone's really looking to see what Magus does. What's up with Magus? And they're never. It's pretty clear to me they're never going to give it to us. I've put in a bunch of links here, not links, but just comments. It's worth noting that Square did register something called Chrono Break. Yeah. Basically, it ain't happening. But it's a little bit of notes here. It's a canceled 3rd mainline entry in the Chrono series. Again, theoretically. While never officially announced by the company, commentary from Chrono series developers have confirmed early plans for the game, alongside a number of trademarks filed in the game's name. However, the game would ultimately go unproduced, and many of the members of the internal development team either moving on to Final Fantasy XI or leaving the company in favor of freelance work. Just a couple notes here. According to Kato, there probably won't be any plans for a while. Our team is currently taking on new challenges, but there might be a sequel. We don't know if our team would be assigned to the title. If our team were to make a sequel, I think you can imagine from Chrono Cross that it will not just be a sequel, but something completely new, which is just the kind of thing he would say. Hori said, since everything I would like to do can be done in a Dragon Quest title, the chances of me making a sequel to Chrono Trigger are unlikely.
Okay.
Sorry. Ouch.
Damn, right? I'm already doing it.
Just play Dragon Quest.
I know.
That's the real Chrono Trigger, too.
Tanaka says, well, the problem with Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger is that the Chrono series is what it is because we always had a very particular team to develop it. Chrono Trigger is kind of the game of the miracle because it was a period when game creators like Akira Toriyama and others were available at that moment, and that's how the game could be made. And for Chrono Cross, it's the same thing. The producer for Chrono Cross, who is now the scenario writer for Secret of Mana 4, the producer for Chrono Cross, who was Mr. Kitase, who is now very busy on the Final Fantasy games. This means it's too difficult. That's what they're saying there. Sakaguchi said, we wanted to continue it as a series, and I think the statute of limitations has passed and expired, so I think I'm okay saying this. We just didn't see eye to eye with management, and so I went and fought for it, and I officially lost the battle.
Oof.
Oof. Chrono Trigger got into politics. Ouch.
Well, it's gaming. Of course it did.
And then Takashi Tokita said, there was actually a time when I thought I planned a new title called Chrono Break. Though it was canceled before accomplishing anything, the overall idea for the title was carried over to my latest game, Final Fantasy Dimensions 2. So he just turned it into an advertisement for his crappy Dimensions game.
I've never heard that.
So
Must have done
basically,
well.
Long story short, Chrono Trigger 2, Chrono 3, whatever you want to call it, it ain't happening.
I think it actually can happen. I think they're a little bit too. I don't know. They're believing the hype too much. They're like, without us, it wouldn't be where it's at, kind of a thing. I think this is the perfect time to do a new generation. There's plenty of still like very good creative minds at Square that can Squeenix, whatever, that can come up with something or create something to where it does feel fresh and new. I don't know if the only thing is I don't know if, and I don't think it's going to be turn based.
No, it'll be an action based system.
Yeah, will it be a AAA game? I don't know. Like where they're like,
okay,
they're developing it at the nines, like Final Fantasy, like 16, for instance. I don't think so.
I would say if it's going to be a big like AAA game, it's going to be like what we saw Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah,
but I don't think that would happen, and I would think they have the bullshit minds to do this. It would be a mobile game.
Oh yeah, it'd be a mobile game, or it'd be available on like I don't know, the Switch or like a true portable console or something like that. Like I don't see it coming out on PS5 or something like that. I will tell you though, with what they're doing with like Final Fantasy VII remake is effectively Chrono Cross. Now I know you haven't played it, but when you do play it and when you beat it and all that stuff, talk to me about it. But it's legitimately a sort of multiverse thing that they're setting up, and I'm like, I wonder, maybe this is the groundwork.
I played a bunch of it. I decided to restart it on PS5.
It doesn't really take effect until you get more towards the end, though.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
To understand why certain things are happening, because right now it's just like, oh, there's a bunch of spirits, but yeah, more towards the end of the game, you're like, oh shit, what? And then it starts to click a little more. But who knows? Maybe they will. I don't know. I don't know if you guys would want a remake or if you would want a like more of a remake style of like the original, or if you'd want a like a completely new entry. I don't know how I'd feel about it, to be honest.
I'd take any.
We know how they feel about it.
yeah, we clearly know how they
Burn
feel.
that shit to the ground.
Yeah, but also even from the perspective of how Chrono Cross was made, if it's these same guys, if it's your what the hell is his name, Tanaka, Kato, those guys, they're all about like advancing with the hardware. So I think they do it in a way that you guys would probably appreciate, a more kind of modern look and appeal to it. The question is just, what would it be? Chrono Cross wasn't exactly a Chrono Trigger 2 to begin with, so you're not really going to get new Chrono Trigger. I don't know, maybe you'd get the HD 2D 3D treatment, maybe you'd get like I don't even know, like, but what would it even be? It would be a game about time, about defeating the nemesis of time in some sense. So maybe instead of time, it's space, or I don't know. But like, if we're gonna like postulate these are the things that it could be, I don't even know that it's that germane to modern gamers. So and hence why I could understand why maybe they drop it. But they did put the thing out on Steam, what, a year, 2 years ago? So they acknowledge it. You know, they respect it. The Chrono Cross came out on the PS3 store, at least in North America.
Yeah.
Or Europe. But we got
on that
it,
one.
so.
On that one, it's they release like every PS1 game, or at least every major PS1 game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
even that
Is
selection
Fighting
is
Force
not that
a
great.
major game?
Is what?
So is Fighting Force a major PS1 game? I have it, but I don't brag about it. I'll tell you. I just have it.
So I think that the tools are there. You know, they could do something, but I think the era of like this level of complex story writing is maybe done.
Well, I think they shot themselves in the foot with Chrono Cross because of how complex and weird they made it. Because Chrono Trigger is not that complex. Chrono Trigger is pretty straightforward, and you can basically wrap it in a bow. I mean, yeah, Magus is out looking, whatever. But I mean, everything else is pretty much wrapped up in a bow. You could resolve that like that. Chrono Cross magnifies the complexity and leaves us with more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And so knowing Chrono Cross is part of the whole thing, it'd be like, how do you make a third one to that? Like, just ignore that it happened? I guess you could do that.
So still think the general consensus on Chrono Cross is that it's a well-beloved game. I think the thing is, the decision of what Chrono Cross would be was changed halfway through.
Yeah.
So thus you have a product that suffers for it, but you also didn't have the dream team. They weren't like all unified together on this in the same sense that they were for Chrono Trigger. And I don't know that they ever will be. That opportunity may never come again.
I agree.
So I don't know. There may not be that opportunity to get another Chrono Trigger, but if fans are willing to accept that and get another Chrono game, I think that there is room for it.
Yeah, I want to say, I mean, maybe I interpreted it wrong, but I want to say we've kind of come to the decision or the agreement that maybe the Dream Team didn't matter entirely for Chrono Cross. Like Akira Toriyama not being attached, for instance, didn't really work to the detriment of the game. Like, it's fine. I like his designs. I mean, there's no disrespect to him on that. It's just wasn't really needed, And
he was better. Sakaguchi music.
Yeah,
outstanding, CD worthy.
You get different characteristics. I would argue Chrono Cross's soundtrack is better than Chrono Trigger's, but that's not saying Chrono Trigger's is bad. I think Chrono Trigger's is great, and maybe it's based upon relevance because I've played Chrono Cross more recently that I can remember more of the music. But like, I still appreciate how much love that they put into the game regardless. And obviously we're being critical, right? Like, if we're talking about some of the elements of the game that are a little bit like out there, like, I think the story is over complex, and I think it works to its detriment because it keeps changing the rules of the universe. Whereas Chrono Trigger has a very baseline set of rules that time flows and you're moving through it. So it makes more sense that if the audience can follow along, if I did A, this is going to affect B. Leaving Robo to plant trees makes sense because the rules they've already created. And then, picking him up later in the future. Like, all that stuff makes sense. Chrono Cross is people can create beings, but by thinking them up, and the frozen flame is good and bad.
Yeah, not even beings, computers and dragons.
Yeah, what the shit are we doing here?
Like, I can safely say we'll never get a Chrono Cross 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay. Well, so that's the thing is, like, going back to that, if you look at like Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, they ignore Dark Souls 2 for a reason. So, one, because what's his name wasn't attached to Dark Souls 2. He was working on something else. But also, gotta watch out. But also, because Dark Souls 2 didn't really do anything to change the story. Dark Souls 1 and 3 are more about telling the overall theme. I could completely see them doing something like that with this, where they make slight mentions to maybe Surge, maybe they talk about the Acadia Dragons, maybe they talk about Poor taking over, or there's a war or something like that. Like, give me that stuff because that's cool and that's world building, but you don't have to go too far into it. Tell me a new story. Give me a different guy. It could be a different, continent even. Give me that. I'm good.
Here's the thing, right? Sato Kato is associated with the director of this game.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's the director of story planner and scriptwriter for Chrono Trigger. His era was the late 90s, early 2000s. Final Fantasy 9, Xenogears, Final Fantasy 7, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross. If you go past that, we get Bat and Kaitos. Okay, awesome. Couple mana games, Children of Dawn of Mana, Heroes of Mana. I don't even know which mana games those are. It's not the famous ones. Sands of Destruction.
Yeah,
Trigger.
Wasn't he
DS,
in
Supervisor?
Wasn't he on like that 3DS game, like
Legend of
Legend
Legacy.
of Legacy, like that was
That was
shit.
the selling point of that game.
Yeah, it was like from
that
the-
he was
Yeah.
the guy behind it. Writer. What did he write?
Shit.
Names of the
It's trash.
characters. Fucking nothing else. There's
was
no
trash.
story in that game.
Yeah.
Not one bit. So this guy's era, the Chrono series, the people who are fighting it for it, the people who are fighting for it, the fucking music guy.
Yeah.
The music guy is fighting to get a Chrono game. Even the writers don't care.
Yeah.
Done. They had their magnum opus, and I think that the chances of the team, even let alone the dream team, the Chrono Cross team coming together on this, not happening.
Maybe that's one reason they're not going to remake Chrono Trigger ever. Is they're like, Akira Toriyama did the artwork and he ain't going to do it for the new one. So it's like, what's the fucking point? Like, it's going to look so, it would look so strange to have a non-Akira Toriyama Chrono Trigger. And like, they can't like...
Get that man in a basement somewhere doing Dragon Quest and Dragon Ball, and that's it.
I think there's got to be someone that he's either, or a few people that he's actually training to sort of pick up as illustrators after he passed. He's old. He's like, what, in his 70s or something? Toriyama. So I could see him trying to plan for his legacy, and someone else would then be in charge of his estate and all that stuff when he passes. But like, I would think there's someone else to look at.
Tokita, who we've mentioned a couple of times, he's done a couple more relevant projects since then. A lot of Final Fantasy stuff, Theater Rhythm, Final Fantasy Collection, Final Fantasy IV Collection. I Am Setsuna.
Oh, he did
Ninaki. So like, I don't know that one, but like the point is, these guys have moved on.
Yeah.
And for better or worse,
Yeah.
They're doing
In the
different
case of the Chrono Cross director, he worked on the story for Ninja Gaiden 3, which is not arguably is agreed upon by all the fans that is the worst Ninja Gaiden. And I'm just like, oh no. He was freelancing too. He's like, trust me, I got an idea.
Remember Chrono Cross? All right. Well, if you wanted to play Chrono Cross now, there's a couple different. There's really only like two ways to do it. You can get it on the PS1, or you can get it on the PlayStation Shop for the PS3 or the Vita. I think it's like $10, and then on PS1, I've seen it 40 to 60, usually unboxed. I don't know what it would be boxed, but I'm sure it'd be not too bad. Sucks that, I mean, to me that's proof that they don't care about this game for whatever reason.
Across eBay, $27.95 free shipping.
$27.95.
And new, sealed.
Oh wow, it's cheaper new. Go get it new. But yeah, it's just weird that they wouldn't release this. It kind of tells me that they, for some reason, they don't see success in this game, which it didn't sell like super poorly. It just didn't like outdo a Final Fantasy. But
Didn't sell to the same extent in Japan.
yeah.
And these are the Japanese making the game, so
I also think that was a era, or not an era thing. That was a Japanese thing. I don't know if you guys have seen it a lot, but oftentimes Japanese developers weigh heavier on the sales of their what's called as a determination of if they're going to continue or not. And it's so weird. To give an example, Guilty Gear, fighting game that just came out a month ago, has sold 500,000 copies worldwide, right? And they're considering that a victory. And then you look at now, or look at what we're seeing these sales prices. Granted, there's different. The market, the environment is different. But it's just so weird to see how people view a success now as opposed to back then. Maybe they were a little bit too quick to judge, whether or not they wanted to pursue another one or not. Maybe maybe they just haven't told us, but the production was complete ass, and they would never work with half the people that they worked with.
Yeah,
which I kind of think is what happened.
Well, what's his face? Sakaguchi's thing is the most interesting.
Yeah.
Want to continue the series? We didn't see eye to eye with management, and so I went and fought for it and officially lost the battle. Yeah, there's a story there.
There is.
I want to know that story.
Right.
What's going on with Sakaguchi?
That was in 2014 that he said that.
Oof.
So
it sucks.
There you go. Final thoughts on Chrono Cross before we end this archive.
I enjoyed it for the music. It has definitely changed. My opinion on it has definitely changed. It is not. I don't hold it in as high regard in the story element. Gameplay, it can still be strategic and fun. I think the main selling point is the visuals and the music.
This was a one-of-a-kind experience that I think we will just likely not see replicated in terms of even turn-based RPGs. And it's just so different on so many different scales, and I'm thankful it exists. I'm thankful I got to experience it. It is a clusterfuck of narrative, and I'm glad I got to talk it out with you guys.
Yeah, I think I like this game less and less every time I play it. It's genius. It hurts because I love it for so many things, and then hate it more and more every time I play it. That they fail so hard at other things, specifically with the story. Its highs are the music and the visuals and just the atmosphere, and then when it tries to explain itself, it just can't. So it just pretty much falls apart.
Wait to see your ranking on this one.
I've thought about it very hard, yeah. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining. This has been a long one, probably the longest one we've had, but I think we got into the nitty-gritty with this guy. So thank you for that, and it's going to be a great
We crossed over a lot of topics.
We absolutely did. Thank you so much, and we can consider Chrono Cross archived. Thanks for watching, everybody.